Chapter 1193. You said that Ma Shinkong led a large group of people to the north to find the demon star and is not in the Galloping Horse City now? As the army went down the river, the weather gradually became warmer and the towns on both sides of the river became more and more prosperous. Li Qingshan had just conquered a small town and found that there were many people from the martial arts world in the town, so he asked and got the news. In this way, this small town was located in the middle of the Galloping Horse City and the place where they fell. Yes, Your Highness, now the whole martial arts world is alarmed. Many people are going north to find the demon star, but it is said that the Ma family has sealed the place. Those below the innate realm are not even qualified to get close. A group of people from the martial arts world looked at Li Qingshan cautiously. They were all surprised and doubtful. They had never heard of such a person in the world who dared to openly oppose the Ma family, and could even make those two obedient, becoming his left and right protectors. However, the white ape swordplay technique was indeed very tempting. Unlike the 9 regions where swordsmen were the minority, in this world, swordsmanship was the mainstream. Jiyu Yangying nodded slightly. I see. But what is the demon star you are talking about? Li Qingshan glanced at her in surprise. Wasn't Fiend Star referring to them? But after thinking for a while, he understood that the perception of the demon star in this world was a bit strange. On the one hand, it was said to be a sign of disaster, which was normal. Ignorant conjectures would inevitably have such inexplicable associations. On the other hand, it seemed to be some kind of rare treasure, which caused the whole world to be in turmoil. Why did it sound like a rock of slaughter? It was also the original form of one of the 3 great demon generals under Spider Queen Loltha's command, Strongboulder. He had fallen into the 9 provinces from the Azura realm, so he was contaminated with the violent killing intent of the Azura realm. It could obviously affect his mind. It was not surprising that his martial arts could be greatly improved. The Stone of Slaughter contained pure and vast spiritual energy. Although it was difficult to turn into a monster in this world, it was like a great tonic for this group of people from the martial arts world. As long as they could get a trace of spiritual energy from it, they could be reborn. Not to mention the killing intent of the Azura path, which contained the extreme of martial arts, could be said to transform a person from the spirit to the body. With all these reasons, one could well imagine the chaos and slaughter caused by the previous demon star. The descent of the demon star will bring chaos to the world was not some ignorant rumor. On the contrary, it was because of their preconceived notions that led to misunderstandings. That was the previous demon star that descended into the world. Where is he now? Li Qingshan asked again. Pudu Temple was located in the middle region and was one of the 7 great sects. It could even be said to be the leader of the 7 great sects. Li Qingshan did not know if it had the boundless Buddhist Dharma. However, their power was definitely not small. Those monks sure are scheming. Li Qingshan smiled. The big temples could gather the power of faith and greatly weaken the killing intent of the Rock of Slaughter. The pure spiritual energy contained within was enough to turn the entire temple into a spiritual land. This item was prepared for you. Jiyu Yangying gently waved her iron fan. Not bad. Li Qingshan nodded. As long as he could absorb the spiritual energy from the Rock of Slaughter, his strength would be restored quickly. However, there is no need to rush. Let's take down the Galloping Horse City first. Didn't you say something like the countryside surrounding the city? Jiyu Yangying said. This is because you did not understand my spirit. The city can also radiate to the countryside. The key is to seize the opportunity and destroy the enemy's strength. Li Qingshan clenched his fist. Those martial artists looked at each other. Although it was a little inexplicable, they could clearly feel the horror contained in it. The Ma family was going to be in big trouble this time. Jiyu Yangying immediately passed down the order and the army went straight to the Galloping Horse City. Half of the people in the Galloping Horse City belonged to the Ma family. However, not all of them were rich and powerful. Usually, even the poor families were arrogant and looked down on other families. However, these days, their faces changed when they talked about the word Ma. Rumors spread in the city. There was a guy called the Night King who specialized in killing people with the surname Ma. Now, No one knew how many families he had killed. He was extremely cruel. It was said that he did not even let go of newborn babies. The others were branded by him and turned into slaves. There were also some rumors that were even more bizarre. Some said that they had to offer him a virgin every day, or else he would fly into a rage and start a massacre. These rumors were exaggerated according to Ma Shinkong's hobbies, but they were so vivid and convincing that the people in the city were in a state of panic. The men were speechless and the women were in tears. When the long fleet of ships went down the river and approached the Galloping Horse City, the whole city was shocked and alarm bells rang. It was dusk. The setting sun dyed the city wall red. Jiyu Yangying fixed her eyes on the city wall and saw that the city wall was tall and the city gate was thick. There were thousands of people walking on top of the city wall. Even though they did not receive proper military training, they all knew martial arts. This showed the deep foundation of the Ma family. In this battle, the Ma family did not have an advantage in terms of quantity or quality. Moreover, the army was restricted by the terrain. If they attacked the city by force, they would suffer heavy losses. Their victory would be interrupted and the situation would become very unfavorable. Qingshan, what are you thinking about? Li Qingshan stood at the bow of the ship and listened to the urgent bell. What do you want to eat for dinner? That is a problem. Jiyu Yangying smiled. Li Qingshan laughed and jumped down from the bow of the ship. Hundreds of people followed behind him. Some of them had excellent lightness skills and left no traces on the water. Some of them were clumsy and heavy. Plop. However, they all knew martial arts. Among them, there were only a few swordsmen from the villa. Instead, there were more martial artists gathered along the way. However, in terms of strength, the swordsmen still had the absolute advantage. With the two protectors working together, it would not be a problem for them to kill everyone. At this moment, they all gathered around Li Qingshan. They did not form any formation. They were either unruly swordsmen or heroes from the wilderness. They could not be restrained by military law. They had always been under Li Qingshan's command. They were more like a gang. It's getting late. I won't talk nonsense. I don't want to miss dinner. I heard that Ma Shinkong's old nest has a lot of good wine. I will treat everyone to wine tonight. I also heard that the old man has a lot of wives. I don't think he will need them in the future. Why don't we share some? Everyone roared with laughter and cheered. However, let me say the ugly words first. Today, I will be the vanguard. You guys follow behind. If I find anyone escaping. Li Qingshan paused. I can't do anything to him. However, one day, there will be no place for him in the world. We are willing to follow your highness to kill the enemy. Good. Raise the flag. Chapter 1194. The army lined up on the red plains, Jiyu Yangying in her silver armor on a white horse, calmly commanding the troops. Li Qingshan walked at the front of everyone, the sunset elongating his shadow towards the direction of the Galloping Horse City. Different from the other martial artists, he wore a black heavy armor, a horned helmet on his head, and in addition to the mixed iron flagpole in his hand, his outfit weighed over 1,000 catties, making him look like an Iron Man standing there. Every step he took made a peng sound, leaving a deep footprint behind him. His movements were slow and clumsy, and the others had to slow down to follow him. As he neared the city gate, he gradually sped up, the footprints behind him became lighter and lighter, as though he was stepping on a spring, immediately bouncing up, becoming faster and faster. The thumping of his footsteps was like a gradually accelerating heartbeat, beating on the hearts of everyone on the city wall. He wants to barge in, quickly release the arrows. Quickly prepare the stones, when he comes over, we will smash him to death, take revenge for our dead clansmen. The shouts from the top of the city wall continued, the sound of arrows piercing through the air could be heard, most of them were aimed at Li Qingshan, the heavy armor clanking, creating sparks, but only leaving white marks. The left and right protectors followed closely, waving their swords to cut down most of the arrows. Ah! There was a cry of pain, someone was still hit by an arrow, but his reaction was quick, he avoided being hit in his vital organs, pulled out the arrow, clenched his teeth and followed. Another cry of pain could be heard, but no one fell, as they were all martial artists, They would not be killed by an arrow, and no one was left behind. No one knew what they were feeling, they only knew that the man at the front had already brought everyone with him, turning them into a part of his aura. Unknowingly, they were no longer just martial artists who liked to fight. Li Qingshan felt a surge of power entering his body. This was the meaning of the scarlet tiger flag in his hand. Like Jiyu Yangying, he was now the commander of the troops, turning them into a war machine. Under his lead, the aura of a mere 100 people was not inferior to the army behind him. When they neared the city gate, a shout came from the top of the city wall, "Quickly throw the stones." The martial artists could not help but look up. It was different from the light arrows. If they were hit by the stones, even if their brains did not explode, their bones would break. There was a buzz. A black cloud flew over their heads and scattered on top of the city walls. Miserable cries rang out, and several figures covered in arrows fell down. Jiyu Yangying sat high on the horse. The iron fan in his hand still maintained its forward posture. The soldiers at the front were all armed with crossbows. After easily suppressing the guards who did not know how to defend the city, he immediately ordered, "Change the sword." Li Qingshan suddenly put down the flagpole in his hand like a big spear. He took a deep step into the ground and shouted, "Break!" With a loud bang, the ironclad heavy gate was pierced through, directly smashing the head of one of the guards. Splinters of wood flew through the air. Shock appeared on the faces of the other guards, but before they could react, there was an even louder explosion. A human figure protruded out of the city gate, and then it shattered. Li Qingshan barged into the city and did not even look back. He swung the flag and sent over a dozen guards flying with a series of crackles. He laughed aloud. The one who took down the city is Li Qingshan. At the same time, sword marks crisscrossed on the distorted city gate behind him. The left and right protectors attacked at the same time and completely shattered the city gate. An old man in a brocade robe with a golden saber in his hand rushed down the city wall with a large group of people. The aura he exuded was also at the innate 8th level. At first glance, it was obvious that he was a person who was second only to Ma Shinkong in the Ma family. When he saw the faces of the left and right guardians, he said angrily, "It's you." This world was not big, and there were not many people who could be called masters. The Ma family has no enmity with you. When you went to the deity Ape Mountain Villa, you even gave us gold and silver. Why did you bite the hand that feeds you? The left and right guardians were silent. Compared to the supreme swordsmanship and breaking through the void, this small favor was nothing. During this winter, they had also benefited a lot, and their martial arts had improved greatly. Often, Li Qingshan only had to casually give them some pointers, and they would see the light at the end of the tunnel. Compared to the pages of the White Ape Sword technique, this was what was truly valuable to them. After all, the White Ape King was only at the innate 10th level. No matter how good his swordsmanship was, it was still limited, not to mention the book he had written. How could it compare to Li Qingshan, who had comprehended the hidden sword of heaven and earth? Li Qingshan laughed and said, "Old thing, I will return the gold and silver, but I will burn it for you. You can have as much as you want." The old man in the brocade robe was furious. He waved his golden saber and said, "The survival of the Ma family depends on this battle. Children, follow me and kill." The Ma family guards and the clansmen who had been temporarily gathered to defend the city numbered more than 10,000. They roared together, and like a tsunami, they rushed forward. Even the left and right guardians, who were great swordsmen, could not help but tremble at this moment. Ordinary fights in the Jianghu would not have more than 100 people, and more often, it would be 3 to 5 people or even one-on-one. They had never seen such a big scene. Bang! With a heavy footstep, they suddenly realized that Li Qingshan had already rushed into the enemy's formation, and they hurriedly chased after him. Li Qingshan rushed forward, his banner like a dragon. The left and right guardians guarded him, their swords cutting like knives. The other martial artists followed behind, like a sharp knife stabbing into the enemy's formation, killing until figures were sent flying and broken limbs flew. Although the Ma family had more than 10,000 people, only a dozen or so could get close to the three of them. They had not gone through battle training, so they were in a mess, and there was no room to maneuver, so it was difficult for them to use their martial arts. The old man in embroidered robe raised his golden knife and tried to rush forward several times, but he restrained himself. He was afraid that if he got close now, he would not be able to block the three people's joint attack, and his life would be in danger immediately. He could only shout loudly and cut down a few guards who were retreating in panic, blood dripping down the knife and sword. Li Qingshan was already bathed in blood, but he borrowed the power of the earth. Not only did he not feel tired, but the more he fought, the more valiant he became. There was almost no time for him to catch his breath, and he only needed to wave the 300 to 400 pounds iron flag in his hand, and he could cause great damage, displaying the advantage of strength to the extreme. Thanks to the thick and heavy special armor, he did not know how many times he would have suffered. He did not retreat a step, and stepped on the corpses, opening up a bloody path, and went straight to the old man in embroidered robe. The left and right protectors felt great pressure. No matter how exquisite their sword techniques were, they could not be used in this kind of battle, and there were a few knives slashing at them at every moment. They could only push their zhenqi to the extreme, and also simplify their sword techniques to the extreme, waving their swords without regard for anything else. The demeanor of a peerless expert, and the principle of killing with one sword, were all thrown to the back of their minds. However, this consumed a lot of zhenqi, and in a short time, their zhenqi was almost depleted by half, and they were at the mercy of others. Although no one could stop them if they wanted to escape, they looked at Li Qingshan in front of them, and perhaps he was about to comprehend the true meaning of the way of the sword, so they wholeheartedly threw themselves into the slaughter. The way of the sword, the way of killing. With a neighing sound, Jiyu Yangying took the lead, and led the army into the city. The battle formation pushed forward layer by layer, and it was like a meat grinder, grinding the flesh and blood of both sides, advancing continuously. It actually formed a faintly discernible long snake in the air, twisting its body as it slithered forward. This was the one-line snake formation of the militarists. The enemy panicked, and they raised their heads as they retreated. The embroidered robed elder killed another 10 people, and he roared, "Don't be afraid, it's just an illusion. Whoever dares to take a step back will be the traitor of the Ma family." He was also puzzled. Other than the 100 people on the other side, they were obviously rough men who did not know martial arts, so how could they gather together and have such power? And it was as if they were going to crush them head on, but he understood one thing: if this continued, they would definitely lose the battle. Passing through the surging sea of people, he saw Jiyu Yangying riding on a white horse, and he ordered a group of Ma family's experts beside him, "Kill the one riding on the white horse." More than 10 innate experts leaped out, and with their qinggong, they stepped on the surging sea of people, and directly attacked Jiyu Yangying. Under the silver eagle's visor, Jiyu Yangying smiled. As expected, in a battle, the military's aura was the most condensed. Although this long snake did not have any actual destructive power, it made her stronger. And didn't she dress up so conspicuously for this moment? Li Qingshan fiercely waved the big flag, and created an empty space, and he shouted, "Left and right protectors, now is the time." 2 sword rays pierced through the air, and the left and right protectors flew up on their swords, slashing towards the embroidered robed elder. Jiyu Yangying waved the iron fan in her hand, and more than 10 innate experts fell into the sea of people like dumplings, killed by the sword rays, and trampled into meat paste. The embroidered robed elder suddenly widened his eyes. How is this possible? What did she do? He did not have time to think, and he waved his golden blade to meet the sword rays. He waited at ease, and there was still a large number of protectors beside him, so he was not at a disadvantage at all. "Go!" Li Qingshan raised the big flag with his right hand, and with all his strength, he threw it. Chapter 1195. The noisy crowd became quiet. The old man's eyes widened. He had been on guard all this time, so why couldn't he dodge it? The left and right protectors looked at each other in surprise. Just now, the power of that attack was so great that even they couldn't dodge it. They couldn't help but think of Hu Hongtao's death. This man's strength was always so unfathomable. He wasn't very strong normally, but he could easily crush all enemies at the crucial moment. Li Qingshan lowered his right hand and dispersed the 5-colored light. He shouted, "The killer is Li Qingshan." In a split second, a tsunami of cheers came from behind. Although he didn't have a weapon in his hand, The Ma family's protectors all retreated with fear on their faces. He walked step by step to the front of the old man and said, "Enough, don't force yourself. Don't force me to finish you off." The old man raised his hand and pointed at Li Qingshan. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but blood immediately gushed out. He died with his eyes wide open. The golden blade in his hand fell. Li Qingshan extended his hand and grabbed the hilt of the blade. He swung it casually and smiled. "It's a little light, but it's still easier to wield." Afterwards, he shook off his damaged, heavy armor, and his bearing changed once more. "Grandpa, Grandpa, you can't die." A beautiful woman recklessly rushed over and threw herself under the embroidered robed elder's body. She let out a mournful wail. She was originally one of the 10 great beauties of the world, and now that she was heartbroken, she couldn't help but be moved to tears. She turned around and her eyes were filled with hatred. She swung the blade at Li Qingshan and said, "Give me back my grandpa's life." A golden light flashed and a beautiful head flew up. Her face was still filled with confusion, as if she couldn't believe that someone could really attack her. Blood spurted out from her neck and the headless body ran a few steps before falling to the ground. "Heh, your blade technique is too weak." Li Qingshan had a mocking expression. If you want to kill someone, you have to be prepared to be killed. Moreover, he was immersed in the long-lost pleasure of swinging the blade. He didn't even notice whether the woman was beautiful or ugly. "You bastard. Everyone, let's kill this demon together." The woman was obviously extremely favored in the Ma family, and she had countless admirers. At this moment, she was beheaded. Everyone was enraged. Then here comes the question. Am I a beast or a demon? Li Qingshan extended his hand and grabbed the woman's descending blade. Since it was lacking in quality, let's make up for it with quantity. A wild laugh rang out. He wielded both swords. Xiao Chen stretched his arm and started spinning. The layers of saber lights turned into a tornado. He rampaged through the crowd. Everywhere he went, severed limbs and heads rolled on the ground. This was the tiger demon's unique savage dance. It roared and leaped, grinding its teeth to suck blood, and devoured life in large mouthfuls. What kind of saber skill is this? Compared to this, the Ma family's saber technique was not even worth mentioning. Even his father's 7-kill saber technique could not compare. I've never heard of the name Li Qingshan before. Could it be that he also obtained the power of the demon star? On a tall pavilion in the distance, a pale and thin youth was lying on the ground. He looked at this scene with his mouth agape. He was carrying a long bag on his back. It was obvious that it was a saber or a sword, but for some reason, he refused to show it to others. At this moment, the bag on his back was trembling slightly. Suddenly, he stood up and shouted, "Hero King, I'm here to help you." He jumped down from the building. Li Qingshan glanced at him strangely. With his level of mockery, there was actually someone he didn't know coming to help him. Although this youth was young, he had also broken through the innate realm. The bag on his back spread open, and he pulled out a long saber. The blade was as black as ink, without a trace of light, but it was several meters long. With one slash, he killed 3 Ma family experts. His pale face was filled with hysterical killing intent. "The saber is not bad," Li Qingshan said. In this world, the 2 sabers in his hands could be considered treasure sabers, but they were already riddled with scars. 7 slaughtering demon saber. That kid is the successor of the 7 slaughtering demon king. There were quite a number of martial artists in the city who were watching the battle from afar. They were terrified and dazzled. So many famous masters had been killed so easily. Some of them had even died in the hands of soldiers with average martial arts. Many people recognized the saber as soon as they saw it. Compared to Li Qingshan, the Hero King, the 7 slaughtering demon king was more famous. He also rose after the demon star came to the world and set off a bloody storm in the martial arts world. The demon star came to the world and the world was in chaos. It was not a lie. He couldn't help but have the same guess as the thin youth. This man named Li Qingshan must have obtained the power of the demon star. That was why he had such a violent killing intent. The Ma family was like a group of dragons without a leader. The left and right protectors didn't need to attack the enemy. They used their excellent sword art and turned into two sword lights, twisting and turning in the sea of people, looking for the enemy experts to assassinate. Although the army led by Jiyu Yangying also suffered many casualties, their morale was getting stronger. The long snake in the sky became more and more serious. A pair of cold snake eyes glanced down, and it flicked its bright red tongue, as if it was choosing people to eat. The sun went down to the horizon, and blood dyed the earth red instead of the sunset. The white horse under Jiyu Yangying was almost dyed bright red, and it was panting heavily. The tenacity of the Ma family was unexpected. It seemed that everyone became crazy because of this battle that they had never seen before. She looked up at the cold sky and thought, is it God's will again? It played a great role in manipulating people's hearts when they were in chaos. Otherwise, the enemy would have been defeated a long time ago. However, this was a good thing. If these people all fled back to the city to fight in the streets, the city couldn't form a large-scale military formation. In that case, 10 armored soldiers were not a match for one warrior, and it would take a lot of trouble to clean them up. It was better to wipe them out in one battle. She didn't worry about losing this battle. Li Qingshan and the left and right protectors were reducing the gap between the quality of the two sides. If it was just a competition of quantity, more soldiers were pouring into the city. These were the newly recruited armored soldiers. Although there were many of them, they didn't have much training, and they didn't have any armor. So she put them at the back in the beginning. Although they couldn't exert much combat power at this time, it was enough to strengthen the army. The huge snake formed by the rolling military chi became more and more solid until it was completely formed. Seeing that Li Qingshan and the left and right protectors had almost cleaned up the backbone of the Ma family, Jiyu Yangying waved her iron fan, and the huge snake shrank and pounced, swallowing dozens of Ma family's guards. No, it's not an illusion. It's a snake demon, such a big snake demon. Facing an unimaginable method, the morale of the Ma family instantly collapsed, and they turned to escape. The battle turned into a chase. Li Qingshan was still charging in front, and he didn't care about the Jianghu's morality at all. He killed anyone he saw without mercy. He turned into a bloody man, and the light of his blade was accompanied by a wild laughter, causing those who heard it to tremble, and those who saw it to lose their courage. Chapter 1196. The flag on the city wall changed. The red tiger flag fluttered. Although it was a bit broken and soaked in blood, it looked even more majestic. The smell of blood inside the city gate was so thick that it could not be dispersed. The ground became muddy after absorbing the blood. The soldiers cleaned the battlefield and killed the enemies who were still alive. Just now, they did not feel it in the fierce battle. Now they saw the corpses everywhere and the blood flowing like a river. It was like hell. Many people vomited on the ground, but they had to continue cleaning after they got up. Gradually, they got used to it. After this battle, they were no longer new soldiers. Jiyu Yangying clearly felt that with the end of the battle and the loss of people, the morale of the army was greatly weakened. However, the quality was improved. Maybe there were more ingenious ways to take down the city, but this was not a personal grudge. It was an all-out war. Only through blood and fire could this army be valuable. The crows did not care about returning to their nests. They flapped their wings and pecked at the corpses. Li Qingshan led his men to take over the inner city, which was the mansion of the Ma family. He put out the fire that was about to start in time and cleaned up a few remaining forces along the way. He also killed a few martial arts people who wanted to fish in troubled waters. Only then did he stabilize the overall situation. He was worried about Jiyu Yangying, so he returned to the city gate. He saw that the people around him were all tired. Even the left and right protectors were no exception. After all, not everyone had the endless support of the force of Earth. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work. Sit down and rest." He threw away the broken swords and sat on a corpse. Hearing this, everyone sat down on the ground as if their bones had been pulled out. The left and right protectors did not care about their identity as swordsmen. They hugged their swords and leaned against the wall to rest. Only the thin teenager came to Li Qingshan. He did not care about the blood and mud on the ground and bowed deeply. What's wrong with you? Li Qingshan asked with a smile. Great king, please accept me as your disciple. I thought you were inspired by my righteousness. I did not expect you to have such an idea. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows, but he wasn't angry. Looking at the black saber in the youth's hand, he said, although your saber technique is a little lacking, your saber is not bad. Hearing Li Qingshan praising his saber twice, the thin teenager felt conflicted and gritted his teeth. He suddenly held the blade with both hands. Lei Lai is willing to offer this blade to His Highness as an apprenticeship gift. Is this the 7 slaughtering demon blade? A cold light flashed in the left protector's eyes. Are you the disciple of the 7 slaughtering demon lord? The right protector asked. I am the son of the 7 slaughtering demon lord, Lei Lai said proudly, causing the crowd to gasp. The 7 slaughtering demon lord. Li Qingshan only knew of this name through Fiend Star. He was the lucky one who obtained Fiend Star's power. No wonder the aura of this saber was so familiar. It was probably forged from the metal contained in the demon star. Naturally, it carried the aura of the Azura Dao. However, he smiled and shook his head. I was just thinking of my own saber. Why would I want your saber? Since your father gave it to you, you should keep it well. Lei Lai let out a sigh of relief. This saber was a family heirloom, which meant a lot to him. However, he felt a deep sense of disappointment. Compared with a peerless saber technique, this saber was nothing. He said unwillingly, I don't know what kind of saber you have, but I dare say that there is no saber in the world that can compare with this one. You are still too young. Li Qingshan laughed. How could such a saber compare with the wildflower saber at the end of the road? Your Highness, could it be that you're afraid that my identity will bring you trouble? If that's the case, I'll take my leave now. Lei Lai's pale face flushed red. Lei Lai, have you ever done anything evil? I have been practicing saber since I was 3 years old. There is no chance for me to do evil. Even my father was slandered by the world. I don't care who your father is. It is enough for me to know you. From today on, you are a member of the world society. Yes. But it is not convenient for me to accept disciples, and you are not suitable to use sabers. Throw this saber away and use a sword from now on. Li Qingshan waved his hand. The left and right protectors looked at each other and nodded. In this way, his identity as the son of the 7 slaughtering demon lord could be concealed. Even if it was exposed, it could be said that he had turned over a new leaf and the reputation of the world society would not be damaged. Li Qingshan did not think so at all. He had never cared about the name 7 slaughtering demon lord. He had only seen through Lei Lai's background with his own knowledge. Everyone in the world regarded the sword as the king of all weapons. A saber, on the other hand, could be taken out by a villager to chop firewood and meat without much practice. There had always been swordsmanship and no so-called saber. At most, it could only be said to be saber techniques. There was no Tao of the saber, and there was no dignity to speak of. However, in the Azura realm, the position of the saber was very high. If weapons were born to kill, then the saber would develop this killing intent to the extreme, making it difficult to control. Because it was simple and almost mediocre, it could not bring out its strengths. Therefore, there were not many Azura who used the saber. The saber was the courage of all weapons. Li Qingshan's first enlightenment came from the saber. What? Lei Lai was shocked and angry at the same time. He had been practicing the saber since he was born and waved the saber 10,000 times a day. Today, someone said that he was not suitable to use the saber. You are full of hatred and your heart is controlled by the saber. If you continue to practice, you will only become a madman. He is right. If you don't believe me, you can leave this saber for a while. The killing intent in your heart will naturally weaken. Not everyone is as warlike and bloodthirsty as him. Jiyu Yangying rode over. Even though she was wearing a silver eagle mask, her voice could not help but warm people's hearts. Li Qingshan licked his lips and grinned. Sometimes, I really want to know what it feels like to cut you down with a saber. Other people use a sword to cut off the threads of love. What's up with you using a saber? Jiyu Yangying joked. Haha, a sword cutting off the threads of love and a saber cutting people. The effect should be about the same. Lei Lai held the saber hilt tightly and his expression changed. At this moment, there was a whoosh and a flock of crows flew up in panic. Li Qingshan immediately arched his back and spread his fingers as if he was a beast that had sensed danger. However, a lazy yawn rang out from behind him. A child walked out from behind him. His expression was dispirited and melancholy that did not match his age. He glanced at Li Qingshan. "Thank you, sleepyhead. I had such a deep sleep. Ah, what is this place?" "Little Ming." Li Qingshan revealed a surprised expression because this unknown divine son had become even younger. He looked like he was only 3 to 5 years old and his aura had weakened to below the first heaven's tribulation. However, he did not know how he had walked out of the Azura field that was imprisoned in this world. Luo Hu Xiaoming put his hands on his waist and looked up at the stars. He seemed to see that this was a small world and said with a disdainful expression, "You are really going backwards. You have the cheek to say that." Li Qingshan laughed and thought, "You are just thanking me. Do you have any gifts?" "Yes, it must let me bring it out." Chapter 1197. Li Qingshan was overjoyed and grabbed the hilt. "Ahua." Jiyu Yangying tilted her head. What kind of stupid name was that? This world is so oppressive. Also, don't call me Ahua, you idiot. Frenzy Flower Sword Soul's weak voice resounded in Li Qingshan's mind. Li Qingshan did not care. He waved his last life Frenzy Flower Blade and slashed in front of Lei Lai. "Brat, I'll show you what a blade is." A violent and wanton killing intent assaulted his face. Lei Lai could not help but retreat and fall on his butt. Everyone was shocked. What kind of blade was this? Even though it was heavily suppressed by this world, the saber was not a true living creature. It would not weaken to the extreme and would still retain a trace of its strength. At the very least, its sharpness and toughness would not be greatly affected. In this world, it was practically a divine weapon. What made everyone feel strange was the sudden appearance of the child. Just now, everyone could clearly feel the dangerous aura. Even now, they were still in shock. The crows circled in the air and did not dare to land. But now, he looked so weak and dispirited. Their gazes returned to Li Qingshan. There were too many mysteries surrounding this man. Li Qingshan waved his blade excitedly. Frenzy Flower Sword Soul asked curiously, "What's wrong with you, brat? Why is your killing intent so weak?" Li Qingshan nodded and said, I'm not suited to using a blade right now. I really don't have much killing intent. This world suppressed the tiger demon. Although the ape demon was violent and restless, it was not bloodthirsty. The expressions of the bystanders were strange. Just based on the way you slaughtered just now, you think you don't have any killing intent. Forget it, it's good that you're alive. Frenzy Flower Sword Soul said. Unknowingly, he had already forgotten the thought of counterattacking at any time. Li Qingshan thought for a moment and made a decision. He ordered someone to bring a thick white silk and let the last life Frenzy Flower Blade restrain its edge. He patiently wrapped the blade layer by layer. "What are you doing?" Jiyu Yangying asked curiously. "Feng Dao." Li Qingshan said. He came to this world in order to practice the ape demon transformation. It was easy for him to kill with the last man's wild flower saber. However, he had wasted such a good opportunity. If he wanted to kill them, he might as well kill them in the Azura realm. What was the point of bullying a bunch of weak natives? It was better to maintain a pure heart and not be disturbed by other factors. She can't kill to her heart's content here, and I can't kill to my heart's content either. I might as well not use it. Wildflower Sword Soul accepted it calmly and said, "Hey, don't be so full of yourself." He had to use it even if he had to. If you are defeated by someone, even if you don't feel ashamed, I will. Of course, I'm not an idiot. How could I not know how to retaliate when I'm being bullied? You should take a rest first. All right. Don't let me wait too long. In the eyes of others, Li Qingshan was talking to his saber. It was rare to see a soul weapon in the 9 prefectures, let alone in this remote small world. I understand. Lei Lai bowed deeply, stood up, and sheathed his saber. Li Qingshan was such a saber fanatic, yet he could still seal his saber. If he continued to be unreasonable, he would be too petty. However, I am not giving up on saber arts. I am also learning from you to seal your saber and use sword arts to correct my nature. One day, I will be able to control it. I hope that when the time comes, Prince, you will accept me as your disciple. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Li Qingshan put his saber on his back and strode toward the Ma clan's mansion. Jiyu Yangying urged her horse to follow closely behind. Luo Hu Xiaoming suddenly said, I want to ride a horse. Jiyu Yangying could already tell that Luo Hu Xiaoming had an unusual background. She smiled and said, You are called Little Ming, right? Was this name given to you by the person in front? You are quite smart. Luo Hu Xiaoming's eyes flashed. He seemed to see something from her. No wonder they were able to fly through the distant void and come to this world. I'll let you ride my horse. Do I have a gift? Jiyu Yangying got off the horse. If you want to use military tactics to conquer the world, you better coax him. Li Qingshan turned around and said. Understood. Jiyu Yangying stretched out her hand and carried Luo Hu Xiaoming onto the horse. As expected, his hellish torture did not have any reaction. This was something even Li Qingshan could not do. As promised, Li Qingshan set up a celebration banquet in the Ma clan's mansion. He rewarded the meritorious people. Gold, silver, treasures, techniques, and secret manuals were distributed like water. After swallowing the Ma clan's 200 years of savings, this bit of reward was like a drizzle. However, it further solidified the army's morale and laid the foundation for conquering the world. With 1,000 miles of land and millions of people, as long as he had some time, it would be easy for him to replenish the power of the divine talisman of great creation. After this battle, it would not take long for the World Assembly to become famous in the world. At the banquet, Luo Hu Xiaoming sat between the two of them without saying a word. He did not drink or eat. He just sat there in a daze, looking depressed. He was very eye-catching. No one knew where he came from. Some people even whispered, is he the son of the two village masters? Late at night, they returned to the backyard. The three of them sat facing each other under a lone lamp. Tell me, what do you want me to do? Li Qingshan took a sip of wine. This divine son of Azura was so kind as to help him bring out the frenzied flower saber. He was not a Lei Feng. Luo Hu Xiaoming played with the slingshot named Xiao Ya. He lowered his head and said nothing. Jiyu Yangying stood at the side with her arms crossed. She took off her mask and looked very curious. Before listening to Li Qingshan talk about Luo Hu Xiaoming's background, she did not expect him to have such a great background. He was the divine son of Azura of the Rahu clan. Coming out from here, I'm afraid he did not wake up from his sleep. He was scared out of his wits. Li Qingshan took out the Azura field again. If I'm not wrong, the blood-colored whirlpool leading to the Azura realm is gradually recovering, and you are so weak that you cannot destroy it. He still felt a lingering fear when he thought about the giant eye that was spying on him. Luo Hu Xiaoming did not admit or deny it. He only asked, you said you want to protect me. Are you just saying it casually, or are you serious? Usually, I'm serious. However, if the owner of the eye directly kills his way into this world, you can just treat it as me casually saying it. Li Qingshan shrugged. If things really get to that point, even if you are willing to risk your life for me, it will be useless. I will do everything I can to protect you. This is all I can promise. That's enough. Right now, I have no choice but to believe you. Obviously, you've already noticed that I'm weakening day by day. In the future, I might be even weaker than a mortal baby. Even a wild beast can kill me. If I die now, I won't be able to be reborn in the Azura realm. Luo Hu Xiaoming reached out and clenched his fists tightly. However, he was still filled with weakness. He did not have the slightest fighting spirit that an Azura should have. May I ask, how did you end up in such a state? Luo Hu Xiaoming was silent for a moment. Someone stole my heart. Li Qingshan immediately understood that it was not the lump of flesh and blood beating in his chest. Instead, it was the condensation of some kind of spiritual will. As expected, He had not lost his fighting spirit himself. Rather, someone had used some kind of method to steal his fighting spirit. This method was really beyond imagination. It was simply unimaginable. I feel like I'll be dragged into the war of the Azura realm sooner or later. Chapter 1198. Is that so? Li Qingshan looked deeply at Luo Husuroming. He understood that Luo Husuroming was not talking about the endless bloody battles of the Azura realm, but the war of gods. What, are you afraid? With your current strength, it's indeed too much for you. A rare smile appeared on Luo Husuroming's face, a mocking smile. A little. Li Qingshan's answer exceeded Luo Husuroming's expectations, but he put away the mocking smile on his face. Very good. How could someone who did not understand fear be brave? Too many Asuras had forgotten this point, including himself back then. Because he had an undying body, because he did not want to be worn down by his fighting spirit, he fearlessly threw himself into battle after battle, killing and being killed crazily, and finally lost his true colors. No wonder you were able to obtain its recognition. I hope you will never forget the fear in your heart. Is it talking about the Azura realm? Yes and no. Jiyu Yangying interrupted. I have a question. Little Ming, if you're currently being hunted down by a god from the Azura realm, then wouldn't it be a great disaster if he follows the Azura field and finds his way here? Frankly speaking, I don't think a small world like this can suppress a god. As soon as she finished speaking, a strong figure leaped out of the Azura field, but fell heavily to the ground. If not for Li Qingshan reaching out to pull him up, he would have been decapitated by the circular blade. Yin Qing straightened up, somewhat disheveled. This is a small world. How's it inside? Luo Husuroming asked. The crack has mostly healed. The passage will reopen soon, and the aura is already beginning to seep in. Yin Qing's expression changed, and she immediately forgot about the heavy shackles this world had placed on her. Originally, she did not have to worry too much. However, she had obtained a drop of divine blood from Luo Husuroming, which was equivalent to branding herself as a member of the Rahu race. Once the owner of the giant eye charged in, she would definitely not have a good ending. It was wishful thinking to want to be reborn in the Azura realm. Man, let me go. We're going to destroy the Azura field, Luo Husuroming said. Hey, why do I feel like I've suffered a great loss? Li Qingshan was very dissatisfied. He had obtained the Azura field with great difficulty. It had only evolved to its current level after experiencing many great battles. Luo Husuroming said lazily, I advise you not to have any other thoughts. You once helped me obstruct him. Just based on this alone, he won't let you off. Don't worry, I said I would protect you. I will naturally protect you. Li Qingshan was not an indecisive person. He tossed the Azura field to Luo Husuroming. Luo Husuroming weighed the Azura field in his hands, but he was in no hurry to destroy it. Li Qingshan also admired his composure. What are you waiting for? I can use this Azura field to turn your army into an Azura army. Jiyu Yangying's eyes lit up. After today's battle, the fatal flaw of this army was revealed. This was because they were all made up of mortals. Even with the help of the militarists, they could only suppress ordinary martial artists at most. To deal with innate experts, or chi practitioners, she still had to take action. However, she was not very strong normally. Without Li Qingshan's protection, it would be very difficult to defend against the assassinations of peerless experts. Even if Li Qingshan could protect her, the ordinary soldiers could not. If the main camp was constantly ambushed, it would not take long for the morale of the army to be destroyed. In this world where individual strength was greater than group strength, the army had too many flaws. You got off easy, Li Qingshan said. I traded my horse for this. Jiyu Yangying smiled. She then asked Luo Husuroming, when can we start? No rush. Time passes very slowly here. Go and prepare first. Sky Scar sword tears. The next morning, Jiyu Yangying gathered the army outside the city. Tens of thousands of enemy corpses piled up into a terrifying mountain. Li Qingshan and the others stood on the mountain of corpses and looked down at the dense mass of human heads. Fei Hong tried her best not to look at the mountain of corpses. She carefully asked Li Qingshan, "Your Highness, what are you going to do?" "Don't worry, it's a good thing. Today, I'll use my treasures to give everyone benefits. However, how much you can receive will depend on your own luck." Li Qingshan had already understood from Luo Hu Xiaoming that although this ceremony could turn many people into asuras, they were still fake asuras. Not only was their strength far inferior to the real asuras, if they did not have an asura's heart, they would very quickly be beaten back to their original form. In fact, they might not even be able to become fake asuras. He then asked Yin Qing beside him, "Are you feeling better?" "Reporting to your highness, I'm much better." Li Qingshan smiled. "That's good. I'll think of a way to help you recover your strength. As long as there's fighting and killing, it's fine. I almost forgot. You're a real Azura. After resting for so long, it's time to resume my journey." Yin Qing gazed into the distance. In the thin morning mist, the mountains rose and fell continuously. This place reminded her of her hometown. It was also so narrow and small. She was once as weak as that girl named Fei Hong, but now, she possessed the divine blood of the Rahu clan. Even if it was only a drop, it was a qualitative change. Fei Hong looked at her enviously, and even a bit jealous. "Qingshan, are they waiting for you to speak?" Jiyu Yangying asked. Li Qingshan took a step forward and said in a loud voice, "Everyone has received their rewards, right?" The rising great director everyone loudly answered, their voices shaking the heavens. "Very good, but that's nothing. What I'm going to give you is far more than that. The galloping horse city behind me is just a small test. We're going to seize the entire world. We're going to make those high and mighty clans and sects, as well as those arrogant martial arts experts, all die. We're going to pile up mountains of corpses and trample all those people who stepped on your head. Long live the hero king." Following Li Qingshan's words, everyone gradually forgot their fear and sorrow. Their fighting spirit ignited, and their voices shook the earth and the heavens. "You all know that the Fiend Star has arrived. Now, all the experts in the world are looking for it in the north, but they'll never find it because the Fiend Star is in my hands. Now, I'm going to distribute its power to all of you, so that you can also have the chance to become peerless experts like the Seven Slaughtering Demon Lord." Li Qingshan's words silenced the sea of people. Then, cheers erupted, as if they were going to break through the heavens. Even the left and right protectors were dumbfounded. Their suspicions were answered. As expected, he was related to the Fiend Star. Then, their eyes were filled with fervor. Li Qingshan turned around and signaled to Luo Hu Xiaoming, "Let's begin." Luo Hu Xiaoming bit his index finger and lightly tapped on the Azura field. In an instant, the runes hidden in the Azura field suddenly expanded, turning into complicated blood-colored lines. A faint blood-colored fog covered a radius of 10 miles. It contained a strong killing intent, but the effect it brought was completely different from that of the Stone of Slaughter. At this time, Ma Shinkong was leading a large group of people to the Galloping Horse City, but he saw that the sky was dyed blood red. Something happened in the Galloping Horse City. "Everyone, hurry up!" Ma Shinkong ordered and whipped his horse with all his might. Then, he turned to the group of Xiantian masters led by Zhong Yuntian and said, "Everyone, please help me this time. Ma family will never forget your kindness." Chapter 1199. The bloody light that reflected the sky made Zhong Yuntian feel slightly uneasy. However, when he looked back, he realized that other than the people from the Ma clan, everyone else seemed to be at ease. Although the Society of the Heavens had a large number of people, the number of true masters could be counted on one hand. Due to the descent of the Demon Star, almost 1/3 of the masters in the world had gathered here. None of the 7 major sects were absent. This was not something that the chivalrous king could contend against. As for the army that was made up of ordinary people, no one would take them seriously. No matter how many ants there were, they were still ants. I would like to see if the chivalrous king really has 3 heads and 6 arms like the rumors say. Even if he really has 3 heads and 6 arms, how can he block Master's great taming tiger fists? Monk Fu Hu laughed and accepted the compliment calmly. There were indeed only a few people in the world who could block one of his fists. The group passed through the dense forest. In front of them was a large river with many ships of all sizes. This was where Li Qingshan had landed. When they saw the scene outside the galloping horse city from afar, they were all shocked. The bloody lines crisscrossed in the air. The thick bloody fog shrouded tens of thousands of people. All of them were standing still and facing a hill. The area outside the galloping horse city is flat. Where did this hill come from? Just as they had such doubts, they saw through the bloody fog and realized that it was a mountain of corpses. All of them had changed color. Such a terrifying and mysterious scene was unheard of. Ah! Ma Shinkong screamed. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. There were many familiar faces in the mountain of corpses. Li Qingshan heard the voice and looked back. They came at the right time. What should we do? I won't move. I won't move. Jiyu Yangying said calmly. It would be strange if you didn't move. Why don't you look at what's under our feet? Li Qingshan stepped on ahead. It was the old man in the brocade robe who was killed by him. It seemed that he was placed there because he had a higher status. I will not live under the same sky as you. Ma Shinkong's howl traveled across the river. That's true. But then again, why is there a mountain of corpses? Jiyu Yangying looked at Luo Hu Xiaoming strangely. She had thought that he was going to be used as a sacrifice, but it seemed like he wasn't going to be used. Pile it up for fun. Is there no use at all? Jiyu Yangying frowned. In order to pile up this mountain of corpses. She did not sleep the entire night and personally commanded the troops. What can a pile of corpses do? Luo Hu Xiaoming glanced at her in disdain. The other people standing on the mountain of corpses didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They had endured all kinds of emotions to stand here, and it was all because of this brat's casual words. Do you think this is a pile of sand? Ha! Li Qingshan patted Luo Hu Xiaoming's small shoulders. Well done. No problem. Hey! Li Qingshan, you should also be more serious. The opponents are all experts. Quickly take out your flower and kill them, Jiyu Yangying said in annoyance. Right now, other than her and Li Qingshan, everyone else was at the crucial moment of turning into an Azura. I'm not going. I just sealed my blade yesterday. If you want to go, go by yourself. Li Qingshan was unhappy. To think that he sealed so seriously yesterday. How could he slap himself in the face like this? If I can go, why would I need you? Don't talk nonsense, go. The army couldn't be mobilized. Right now, Jiyu Yangying's strength was very weak. She definitely couldn't stop so many experts. If not for Luo Hu Xiaoming's sudden appearance and bringing the last resort frenzied blade, even if they could mobilize the army, this battle would be a bitter one. Fine, fine. Li Qingshan shrugged helplessly. Holding the hilt of his blade, he jumped down from the mountain of corpses. The frenzied blade spirit came to his senses and immediately laughed at Li Qingshan. Veins popped on Li Qingshan's forehead. When he reached the riverbank, he was already angry. He shouted at Ma Shinkong, "Old man, what are you yelling about? Is your whole family dead?" You, Ma Shinkong almost fainted from anger. His face turned red and purple. He pointed at Li Qingshan but couldn't say a word. He wanted to cross the river and fight him to the death. Brother Ma, please wait. This could be a trap, Zhong Yuntian said. Ma Shinkong looked back. Other than his own family members, everyone else's faces were filled with fear. The river in front of them was so big that only a few Xiantian realm masters could cross it easily. He was an experienced Jianghu man. He suppressed his anger and said, "I will listen to you, alliance leader." He then said to the crowd, "No matter who kills this bastard and avenge Ma clan, I am willing to repay you with 10 cities. As soon as he said that, everyone was tempted. 10 cities had a radius of at least 100 miles and a population of hundreds of thousands. It was enough to establish a clan. Ma clan is finished. Zhong Yuntian silently said in his heart. That mountain of corpses was the foundation of the Ma family for almost 200 years. Originally, he thought that the Under the Heavens faction only relied on their numbers to attack the surrounding cities. He didn't expect that the galloping horse city would also be so easily breached. They couldn't even defend for a day. Even if they won this battle, their forces would be greatly reduced. The 10 cities were just a small favor. On the other side of the river, the figure with arms that reached his knees matched the rumor. He asked sternly, "Are you Li Qingshan?" "Yes, I am," Li Qingshan said. Zhong Yuntian's expression changed. He pointed his halberd and shouted, "Devil, I thought you were just a hypocrite fishing for fame. I didn't expect you to be so perverse. You made the whole martial arts world your enemy. You are worse than a beast. You are wrong. I am like a beast, but I am not worse than a beast. In 9 transformations of celestial and demon, the phoenix was a bird and the tiger was a beast." Li Qingshan's words were true. Zhong Yuntian's expression became more and more gloomy, and the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. He had never seen such a scene in his life, nor had he met such an opponent. Alliance leader, this Li Qingshan is just a clown trying to buy time. They seem to be carrying out some kind of ritual. Now is the best time to attack. We must not let them succeed. Ma Xingkong said loudly. Almsgiver Ma is right. Since ancient times, good and evil have never coexisted. With the few of us working together, can we not deal with him? I don't think this Li Qingshan is anything special other than his unusually long arms. Maybe he's a hybrid of the White Ape King and a human woman. Monk Tiger Subduing saw that Li Qingshan was emitting an aura that seemed to have entered the innate level, but it was not strong. Even if he had a secret technique to hide his true strength, with the few of them working together, even the White Ape King would be defeated. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly saw his straw sandals and couldn't help but blink, not understanding what had happened. With a thud, his bald head hit the ground, leaving only half of his body standing. Zhong Yuntian's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He wondered if he was dreaming. On the other side of the river, Li Qingshan had only waved his blade, and Monk Tiger Subduing was cut in half at the waist. What the hell is that thing on the other side? The others also came to their senses, and they almost went crazy on the spot. Chapter 1200. The saber flashed across the river and turned into Li Qingshan. He kicked Fu Hu Monk's body and flipped him over. Bald donkey, you are the bastard. Zhong Yuntian felt like his blood was about to freeze. He was rooted to the spot and could not move. The others were the same. Their eyes were blank and their faces were pale as if they were possessed. Even though the power of the dying flower saber was suppressed, it was still a piece of cake for him to kill a Qi practitioner. However, Li Qingshan felt that his power was running out. If not for the frenzied flower saber's cooperation, he would not have been able to use the dying flower saber. Look at you, I really want to devour you. The frenzied flower saber laughed. Devour your ass. Li Qingshan did not care. He raised his saber and walked to Ma Xingkong. You are Ma Xingkong? Demon. Ma Xingkong roared and pulled out his saber. Li Qingshan slashed again and a bloody line appeared on Ma Xingkong's forehead. It went from top to bottom and split into 2 halves. He fell to the ground. Who else? No one replied. They were all dumbstruck. Li Qingshan glanced at Zhong Yuntian and said, "Oh right, you too. What did you say about me just now? Fame-seeking, perverse, worse than a beast." Every word was like a knife stabbing into Zhong Yuntian's heart. His body trembled and a great sense of helplessness filled his heart. He deeply regretted coming to the north and following Ma Xingkong to the south. Even if the Ma clan's people were all dead, it had nothing to do with him. This Li Qingshan was not a demon, he was a demon king. He mustered up his courage and asked, Who are you? And who are you? I am the Martial Arts Alliance leader, Zhong Yuntian. Zhong Yuntian said proudly. Li Qingshan smiled and said, Martial Arts Alliance leader, all right, let's make a deal. Why don't you give me the position of Wulin's chancellor? Look at how much better my martial arts are than yours. Zhong Yuntian was speechless. The wildflower saber soul muttered, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be their match right now. I should be the Martial Alliance master. Li Qingshan rolled his eyes and said, I think the title of Master of Wulin is too old-fashioned. It's not as impressive as the chivalrous king. He then said to Zhong Yuntian, "Forget it, I don't want to be the master of Wulin anymore. Give me this saber. What do you think? Are you willing?" Zhong Yuntian took a deep breath. The position of alliance leader. It is not just based on martial strength. It requires at least half of the 4 noble clans and 7 great sects' approval. "Ha, you guys are quite democratic. Kid. How dare you brush me off? Have a taste of my blade." Wait. There were people from the 4 great clans and 7 great sects here. They're right behind me. If they're willing to serve you as their leader, I'm willing to give up my position. Zhong Yuntian glanced at the corpses of Ma Xingkong and Fu Hu Monk. At the very least, there were 2 families that could no longer object. He had dominated the world and could not be humiliated like this. However, he did not want to die, so he simply threw the problem to others. Seeing Li Qingshan look over, the people from the other sects cursed in their hearts. "Good idea. If any of you don't agree with my Hua becoming the master of Wulin, come out and fight with her. Devil, you and I, poof." A head rolled down. Li Qingshan killed a few more challengers who overestimated themselves. Finally, there were no more voices of objection. He asked Zhong Yuntian for the Alliance Leader's seal and a jade plate with the words Alliance Leader engraved on it. He hung it on his saber and ascended to the throne of the Master of Wulin. He pointed his saber at the sky and said, "Remember what I said. The Supreme Master of Wulin, the treasured saber Hua, commands the world, and no one dares to disobey." "Shut up, don't call me Hua." Everything that happened here made the elders of the World Association on the other side speechless. Such a great crisis actually ended in such a joking manner. "The crisis has been resolved. Everyone, focus," said Jiyu Yangying. Even though Li Qingshan possessed invincible strength, he needed to establish an organization to unite the world if he wanted to gather the power of belief as soon as possible. Moreover, she could tell that it was impossible for Li Qingshan to fight for too long in his current state. The restraints on a weapon were much smaller, but if he wanted to unleash its true power, he needed the support of the user's power. The Forsaken Immortal Sword had caused a backlash against Elder Tian, and the entire Sword Collection Palace had been sacrificed. Only then did he possess the power to fight. Li Qingshan was unable to provide power to the end of Wulin Blade. Now, he completely relied on the power stored in the saber to fight. There would come a time when it would run out. If he wanted to replenish it, he would have to rely on the divine talisman of great creation. Just as she thought that, a nameless power suddenly descended from the sky. It passed through the top of her head and pierced her soul. Jiyu Yangying felt like she had been struck by lightning. She discovered that the mountain of corpses beneath her and everyone around her had all vanished. Only the blood-red ground extended endlessly. She slowly raised her head, and a single eye filled the sky, staring right at her. At that moment, her hawk-like eyes became blood-red, reflecting a black sun and moon. Her presence suddenly changed, and a vicious aura flooded the surroundings. Li Qingshan suddenly looked back and frowned. What was going on? The crisscrossing, blood-red lines twisted, and the bloody mist churned violently. Yin Qing sensed Jiyu Yangying's change and took a step back. She cried out involuntarily, "Kitu." Rahu and Kitu were 2 great clans of the Azura realm. Legend had it that their ancestors were born from the same body, which was why they both used the black sun and moon as their totems. The black sun and moon in Jiyu Yangying's eyes were the exact opposite of Luo Huxioroming's. It was the symbol of the Kitu clan. Yes, apart from the Kitu clan, who could chase a Rahu to the ends of the earth? "Lord Luo Hu, what do we do?" Jiyu Yangying slowly turned her head and stared at Luo Huxioroming with her blood-red eyes. "Found you." The voice was hoarse and sharp, yet inexplicably pleasant. Although it was no longer Jiyu Yangying's voice, it was still a woman's. "You really came." Luo Huxioroming smiled coldly. "Do you think you can escape by hiding in a place like this? Look at how weak you are. You're just like a worm. You've saved me some trouble. Die." She reached out to grab Luo Huxioroming's throat. The laws of heaven and earth shattered, and the void distorted. Facing this attack that transcended the void and worlds, everyone could only watch helplessly. It was the same for Luo Huxioroming, But the sneer on his face did not change. Instead, it became even more intense. A dark green feather drifted down. It was light and silent, but it left a bloody mark on the giant eye that filled the sky. Luo Hu Xiaoming's sneering face was revealed from within. Jiyu Yangying woke up from her nightmare and found that she could see the outside world again, but she still could not control her body. Only then did she realize that she had been possessed. This is. The hoarse and pleasant voice was filled with shock and anger. She never thought that there would be something in this small world that could hurt her, even if it was only a wisp of her will. The power in the pale blue feather was negligible, but it contained a vast and lofty will that was far beyond her reach. Heaven mixing feather. Finally found it. This is just a small gift in return, Luo Hu Xiaoming said. Chapter 1201. The crisscrossing blood-colored lines in the air broke and disappeared at the same time, like a broken heartstring. Luo Hu Xiaoming pursed his lips and remained silent. He became weaker at a visible rate, his face looked even more childish, and his melancholy became even stronger. Jiyu Yangying's body swayed and fell backward. Li Qingshan flew back and helped her up. "Are you all right?" Then he asked Luo Hu Xiaoming sternly, "What's going on?" Jiyu Yangying shook her head and said in realization, "So I'm the sacrifice." Originally, she was the same as Li Qingshan. She didn't want to become an Azura. Even if she wanted to become an Azura, she wouldn't do it in such a lowly way. It was Luo Hu Xiaoming who made her stand on top of this mountain of corpses, saying that it was to show her position as the commander of this Azura army, and that was the center of the entire ceremony. It turned out that it was to attract the will of the pursuer to descend on her. This mountain of corpses wasn't useless, at least it fooled her. Luo Hu Xiaoming said, "I'm connected to her by blood. If I can't cut off the clues and confuse the heaven's will, she can find me no matter where I go." Li Qingshan said angrily, "So you're using us as bait? She should have found you and killed you. Do you think that if she had determined my location, she would still descend? She would have directly destroyed this world in the Azura realm, and no one would have been able to escape." Luo Hu Xiaoming touched the slingshot called Xiao Ya on his waist. His expression was a bit absent-minded. "Then why don't you let me kill you right now and get rid of one of my worries?" Li Qingshan swung his dying flower blade. "Qingshan," Jiyu Yangying grabbed his hand that was holding the blade, "I'm fine, this can be considered a blessing in disguise." It turned out that when the Kuan Peng's feather severed the descending will, a trace of divinity contained in it fused into her soul. In this world, she couldn't see any other benefits for the time being, but she had a better understanding of the inheritance in the Kuan Peng's feather. It's not a blessing in disguise. This is part of the plan's reward, Luo Hu Xiaoming said. "Should I thank you?" Jiyu Yangying raised her eyebrows. The feeling of being possessed by a god was not a wonderful experience. "That's not necessary. This is what you deserve. Actually, if you had explained it to me earlier, I would definitely have been willing to cooperate." She never lacked the spirit of adventure. "Once your heart is prepared, I don't know what will happen. This man might not be willing to let you take the risk." Jiyu Yangying glanced at Li Qingshan, then suddenly looked away. "Forget it, this is not a bad result." Li Qingshan slowly put down the blade in his hand, hid the anger on his face, and said to Luo Hu Xiaoming, "Although I made a promise to you, if something like this happens again, don't blame me for being merciless." Luo Hu Xiaoming reluctantly grunted. Apart from this small accident, the ceremony went very smoothly, except for Yin Qing. Apart from Yin Qing, the others didn't even know what happened, completely immersed in the ceremony. When they opened their eyes again, their black pupils were faintly glowing red, carrying some of the characteristics of an Azura. The left and right protectors' auras rose. They even directly broke through to the innate level 9. The other martial artists also more or less improved. The path of martial arts and the path of Azura killing were interlinked, or even fundamentally the same. But the ones who benefited the most were not them, but the thousands of soldiers. They had missed the best age to practice martial arts, and would never become experts in their lifetime. But now, they were reborn, and their bodies were brand new. They had the possibility of advancing further. Amidst the tsunami-like cheers, Li Qingshan looked at the other side of the river, Zhong Yuntian, and the others had already disappeared without a trace. He didn't want to kill innocent people, and wanted to take this group of people as hostages to unify the world in the future, so there would be fewer obstacles. But he didn't expect such a change, and he didn't know if it was because of the influence of the heavens. If he went to chase after them now, even if he killed one or two, it would be meaningless, and it would waste the power of the frenzied flower blade. Forget it, I'll let them spread my name. I think the effect should be similar. Afterwards, Jiyu Yangying ordered everyone to dig a big pit to bury the corpse mountain, and the stench lingered for months. On the way back to the city, Jiyu Yangying asked Luo Hu Xiaoming for information. Is that your mother? There is such a mother in the world. This feather is called heaven mixing feather. What does heaven mixing refers to? But from that day on, Luo Hu Xiaoming didn't say a word, and he looked more and more depressed and dispirited. Li Qingshan felt a little sorry for him, being hunted by his closest relatives. Even if it wasn't the only reason he lost his fighting spirit, it was still a deep impact. But such a thought only flashed through his mind, and he had many things to do every day. Jiyu Yangying led the army to uproot the Ma family's influence in the north, and the martial arts of many soldiers in the army began to improve by leaps and bounds, causing a qualitative change in the whole army. Jiyu Yangying's strength also increased, and she no longer needed Li Qingshan's constant protection. Li Qingshan sat in the city, ordering people to copy the biography of the White Ape King, and at the same time gathering and training a large number of storytellers, not only to spread his novel, but also to spread his idea of great harmony, equality for all. So he no longer had to worry about a lack of manpower. He was not in a hurry to expand, but to fully digest the results of the war. Wherever the world developed, the biography of the White Ape King would spread. The power of belief in the divine talisman of great creation increased at a rate of 100 times. Li Qingshan discovered that although this world was much smaller than the 9 provinces, the power of belief it provided was no less than the 9 provinces. The 9 provinces were vast, but his novels could only influence the Clear River Prefecture and even the Rui Commandery, and it was just a form of entertainment at the end of the day. Afterwards, with the chaos of war, even the lives of regular people were in danger, so who was in the mood for entertainment? From then on, the power of belief in the divine talisman of great creation stopped gathering, growing at an extremely slow rate. As a result, Li Qingshan no longer paid any attention to it, focusing on other things. Although the world was small, basically everyone desired the martial arts mysteries hidden within the biography of the White Ape King. He even had the authority to enforce it so that everyone could read and hear the book, so the effects were obviously on a whole new level. And with the complete overthrow of the Ma family's rule, the land was all given to regular people. The name of the hero king was basically like the midday sun in the north. Many people worshipped him almost fanatically. It was said that in a village to the north of Galloping Horse City, there was an old man who did not know any martial arts at all, nor did he know a single word, yet he could memorize the hundreds of thousands of words he had written without missing a single word. Li Qingshan even specially summoned him. Let alone practicing martial arts, the old man basically had one foot in the grave. It was not for the martial arts mysteries in the book at all, so his devotion went without saying. In the end, Li Qingshan rewarded him with many treasures and ordered people to send them back to the village, which led to another wave of memorization. If I can unify this world, I'll definitely be able to elevate the power of the divine talisman of great creation to an unprecedented level. Chapter 1202. Time flew by. Spring left and summer came. It was another full moon night. Li Qingshan sat cross-legged beside the pond under the weeping willow and gazed at the bright moon in the pond. Luo Hu Xiaoming lay on a round rock nearby with his arm as a pillow. The rock wasn't big, and his figure was getting smaller and smaller. As he gazed at the sky full of stars, the melancholy on his little face faded a little. It was as if he was pure for the first time, or as if he was about to die. Li Qingshan guessed that he was cultivating some kind of technique, similar to Phoenix Nirvana. Because if he really continued to rejuvenate until he became a little tadpole, why would he care so much about his own life? Ever since Luo Hu Xiaoming came out of the charaba, he followed him closely. Jiyu Yangying finally didn't need his protection anymore, but now he had this little tail, so he could only continue to be a big bodyguard. He closed his eyes, and his body glowed with 7-colored splendor, illuminating the pond. Half a month ago, the divine talisman of great creation had accumulated enough willpower, and he only had to wait for this full moon night. Pure spiritual power surged and circulated in his body, pushing the devil ape moon fishing art with all his might. His heart was filled with joy, and he couldn't help but smile. The devil ape made him feel happy no matter what, and he almost couldn't help but dance with joy and let out a few strange howls. However, he suppressed this impulse and continued to cultivate. As his cultivation continued to deepen, and there were no other changes to restrict him, his appearance became more and more like an ape, and he always looked a little funny when he smiled. Luo Hu Xiaoming turned his head to look at him, his eyes full of mockery. A trace of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his mood was better than ever. He was also guessing the technique that Li Qingshan cultivated. Even though his cultivation was almost gone, his vision was still there. Li Qingshan's change wasn't just in his appearance, but in his quality every day. To him, this wasn't anything special. What was special was the aura that the devil ape emitted. Even though it was just a bud, he could clearly feel it. This wasn't an ordinary ape. Instead, it was some kind of fiend god variant, or even one of the 4 legendary apes. Once it fully matured, its bloodline would definitely not be inferior to his. If that was all, it would have been fine. Perhaps Li Qingshan was born with a trace of bloodline inheritance. Then, it was constantly stimulated through cultivation. But he had seen it with his own eyes. Li Qingshan had several different auras on him, and each aura represented a bloodline. Each bloodline was almost supreme. Yet, they were able to harmonize perfectly. This was definitely not something he was born with. It could only be the influence of some kind of cultivation technique. However, he could not think of any cultivation technique that could have such an effect even after searching through all his memories. Or rather, it was impossible for such a cultivation technique to exist in the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 3000 world. There was only one possibility left. He turned around and gazed at the stars. His gaze became boundlessly distant, as if he had passed through the Milky Way and reached an even higher place. In his heart, there was a kind of understanding. This chance encounter, perhaps, was fate. Ha ha, success. A burst of laughter suddenly broke the silence. Li Qingshan's ape eyes were wide open, filled with joy. Without the influence of other changes, the cultivation of the demonic ape transformation was unusually smooth. There were almost no obstacles, and he comprehended the first type of demonic ape's supernatural power. Li Qingshan raised his right arm and spread his fingers. He gazed at the bright moon in the pond, and then reached for the moon in the pond. He held a bright moon in his hand. The bright moon in the sky, the moon in his hand was still illusory, but it was finally a step forward. One day, he would go to the 9 heavens to pluck the moon. Congratulations, Luo Hu Xiaoming said. Li Qingshan was startled. Water flowed from his fingers and splashed into the pond. In the past few months, although the two of them had been seeing each other day and night, they didn't communicate much. It wasn't because of the incident on the Mountain of Corpses. Since the victim's family didn't care about it, he wouldn't keep it in his mind. It was just that Luo Hu Xiaoming was getting more and more depressed, and he did not speak much. He did not even answer 10 questions, so Li Qingshan would not rush to curry favor with him. But today, he took the initiative to talk to him, and it was a good thing. It was like the sun rose from the west. Thank you. After a moment of silence, Li Qingshan said, I have something to ask you. Ask away. Can a man live without a heart? I am not a man. Then what's the difference between a man and a god? There is no difference. I understand. Damn you. Let's go back and have a few drinks to celebrate. Li Qingshan stepped across the pond, picked up Luo Hu Xiaoming, and walked towards the brightly lit mansion. The wind was howling, the dark clouds were heavy, and the mountain rain suddenly came. A small town at the foot of the mountain was suddenly covered by the wind and rain. It was already past the summer solstice, but the top of the mountain was still covered with white snow, which showed how high the mountain was. It was where the Snow Mountain School, one of the 7 martial schools in the world, was located. The wind and rain were like clouds. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but the restaurant was already dark. There were no customers for a long time. The manager was behind the counter doing the accounts, and the waiter was dozing off on the table. The rain had just stopped, and a few people walked in. They were all wearing snow-white clothes, with long swords on their bodies, looking very heroic. The leader was a woman, with a bamboo hat on her head, and a white veil hanging down, covering her face. The manager looked up and saw who it was. He quickly came out from behind the counter and bowed. "Miss, you are here. Uncle Hong, you are still the same. We are here to take shelter from the rain." Schwebing nodded back. The waiter also woke up, and quickly wiped the table and pulled a chair. "Miss, this way please." He couldn't help but look up. Even though he couldn't see her face through the veil, he blushed immediately when he looked into her eyes. Schwebing turned a blind eye, and the swordsmen behind her were also used to it. After all, she was one of the top 10 beauties in the world, and it was inevitable that some toads would have wishful thinking. The manager personally served a few plates of delicate snacks. "Miss, you came so suddenly that I didn't have time to prepare. My place is not as good as the mountain, so you can have a taste. You are welcome. I often came here to beg for food when I was a child." Although Schwebing had no appetite, she still picked up a piece of Osmanthus cake out of politeness. The manager immediately smiled. Yes, you were so young at that time, and in the blink of an eye, you became one of the top 10 beauties in the world." Schwebing stopped eating the Osmanthus cake. She had never liked this title, and now she was most unwilling to hear it. The so-called top 10 beauties were just the 4 major families and 7 major sects. Excluding the Pudu temple, each family and sect had chosen a woman with outstanding appearance. The first thing to be considered was family background, and the last was martial arts. Now there were only 9 of the top 10 beauties left. The Ma family, the number 1 family in the northern region, could no longer produce any beauties, and the Snow Mountain sect happened to be the number 1 sect in the northern region. After the Ma family was destroyed by the World faction, all the sects and families in the northern region were swept away. Now only the Snow Mountain sect was left, and its traditional sphere of influence had been reduced to less than 100 miles. She had brought people to patrol and found that the situation was not optimistic. The legend of the White Ape King, which contained supreme swordsmanship, had already been circulated before the World faction attacked. She believed that it was in this city. Because of the head of the Snow Mountain sect, her biological father had collected a complete set. She had read it carefully and was amazed by the swordsmanship. What was even more amazing was that someone was willing to show such a supreme technique to others so easily, and even spread it vigorously. At first, she had thought that it was someone else's martial arts, so she did not feel bad about it. But her father had asserted that the most exquisite part was not the work of the White Ape King, because even he could not comprehend it, only feeling that it was broad and profound. More pessimistically, if this went on, the legacy of the Snow Mountain sect would be lost even before the World faction attacked. Since there was a way to learn supreme swordsmanship easily, who would want to be apprenticed and live under someone else's roof? The supreme technique of the Snow Mountain sect, the Blizzard Sword technique, had always been learned by only a few people. This time, the disaster brought about by the arrival of the Demon Star was far greater than the last. The order of the martial arts world, which had existed since ancient times, had been destroyed like never before. Even the Snow Mountain sect, a sect with hundreds of years of history, could not avoid trouble, let alone the top 10 beauties. She was lost in thought for a moment, and shopkeeper Hong panicked. "Miss, is the snack not to your taste?" "Old man Hong, what nonsense are you talking about here? Go back and settle the score." A reckless young man waved his hand impatiently, and said to Schwebing with a face full of eagerness, "Sister, don't worry. With me here, no one can hurt you. You brat, you have only learned martial arts for a few years, and you dare to say such big words. Besides, Miss is such a kind and beautiful person, who can bear to hurt her?" Shopkeeper Hong was unhappy. Although he only knew a little bit of martial arts, he was no match for this young man. But this small town and the Snow Mountain sect depended on each other. For hundreds of years, many people had practiced martial arts on the mountain, and there were all kinds of relatives. Even the miss of the Snow Mountain sect had grown up under his watch, so he was naturally not afraid of the prestige of martial artists. This was also the difference between sects and aristocratic families. Sects needed to recruit disciples, not just one family, and they valued reputation more. Moreover, they would not constantly spread out like aristocratic families, and the mountain could not accommodate too many people, so they did not need so many resources. Clothing, food, housing, and transportation were all provided by disciples, as long as they had a certain area of influence. Who else can it be? Of course it's the big devil, Li Qingshan. The arrogant young man obviously did not see Xuebing frowning after hearing this name. Li Qingshan is not a devil, he is a chivalrous king. The waiter who was carefully serving at the side suddenly spoke, which surprised everyone. Are you crazy? You don't have the right to speak here, go and work. Shopkeeper Hong shouted. Well, there is a spy from the World Society here. I will teach you a good lesson, and then you will know whether Li Qingshan is a chivalrous king or a devil. The arrogant young man rolled up his sleeves. Even if you kill me, Li Qingshan is also a chivalrous king, the savior of us commoners. The waiter's face turned red, and he stretched his neck and shouted. All right, stop talking. When the rain stops, we will go back to the mountain to report. Before Xuebing's voice died away, the restaurant was suddenly illuminated by lightning, and a figure was cast on the ground. Boom! The thunder seemed to explode above their heads, shaking the bowls and plates, and everyone's ears were buzzing. Chapter 1203. He rolled on the ground in a very sorry state before he stood up and shouted, Boss, bring the wine. Pitter-patter. The rainwater he carried splashed everywhere. Xuebing's pupils shrank. She released her innate qi to block the water droplets. The others were not so lucky. They had not reached the innate realm and only had inner force. They were drenched by the rain. The exquisite desserts on the table were also soaked and could not be eaten anymore. Looking at the man who had barged in, he was tall and had disheveled hair. He was dressed in a yellow robe, and his sleeves were almost touching the ground. He was supposed to be dressed elegantly, but his chest was exposed, and his feet were covered in mud. There was nothing elegant about him. Not to mention his strange appearance. He looked like an ape. The smile on his face made him look even more comical. People could not help but think of the words wearing a crown on a monkey. Manager Hong was so angry that he blew his beard and glared at him. It was a small matter if he was drenched by a few drops of rain, but the few plates of pastries that he had prepared were all ruined. He said stiffly, We don't sell wine here. What do you want to buy if we don't sell wine? Don't joke around. Bring it quickly. I will reward you heavily. Oh right, bring some dishes to go with the wine. I said, we don't sell wine here. Although Manager Hong knew that the man was skilled in martial arts, they were at the foot of the Snow Mountain sect. They were surrounded by Snow Mountain sect disciples. Why would they be afraid of a stranger? The reckless young man from the Snow Mountain sect wiped the rain off his face. He was about to ask where this man came from. Was he a spy from the World Society? Xuebing's warning voice rang in his ears, Don't speak. The voice was cold, but it was trembling slightly. Looking at the strange man, she suddenly thought of someone. Rumble. Another series of thunder sounded. The cups and plates shook violently. It was as if there was a thunder dragon hovering above the restaurant. The lightning illuminated the inside of the restaurant. The roaring thunder shocked everyone. Only the man stood still. His shadow on the wall bared its fangs and brandished its claws. His face was also flickering. His originally comical face suddenly revealed a cruel and ferocious look. A gust of wind blew into the restaurant and lifted Xuebing's veil. A pair of limpid autumn eyes stared at the man's long sleeves. It did not flutter in the wind, but hung straight down. Her red lips had turned pale at some point. It's him, it must be him. That murderous bastard. The Devil King who brought chaos to the world. The blood seemed to freeze. Before seeing it with his own eyes. She had never imagined that she would be so afraid. He did not come here to drink, but for the entire Snow Mountain sect. She could almost see the bloody scene in the Snow Mountain sect. And the first to die was this shopkeeper Hong, who did not know the identity of the newcomer and insisted on refusing to sell his wine. He did not even have the courage to open his mouth to remind them. The man suddenly let out a childish laugh, which seemed extremely strange. Everyone shuddered, and shopkeeper Hong also took a step back, saying in shock, "What are you laughing at?" The man turned around to look behind him. A young child climbed up from his back and sat on his broad shoulder. He mocked, "I told you to drink so much that you don't care about your life, but they won't sell it to you at all. Let's see what you do now." The summer thunderstorm came quickly, but this bastard didn't hurry to find a house to hide in. Instead, he saw a wine flag and insisted on rushing over, almost causing him to be struck by lightning. "What should I do?" "Nothing." The man spread his hands, turned around and walked to the door. He faced the wind and rain, looking at the snow mountain in the rain. He actually gave up. Although he wanted to drink and wait for the rain to stop, he would not bully an ordinary old man for this small hobby. Anyway, when he reached the mountain, someone would treat him. If that happened, he would chop off the head of whoever dared to be stubborn. "Serves you right." The young child clapped his hands and laughed. Schwebing's eyes were filled with surprise. Did she see wrongly? In the face of such a scene, the slightly more vicious people of Jianghu would probably kill. Even those with a good temper would want to teach shopkeeper Hong a lesson and force him to bring the wine. However, seeing the giant blade wrapped in white cloth on the man's back, this glimmer of hope had to be destroyed. A few months ago, eldest senior brother had witnessed with his own eyes how Pudu Temple's tiger-taming master and Northern Horse Clan's Grand Clan leader all died under such a blade. Like pigs and dogs facing a butcher, they had no power to resist. Since then, eldest senior brother was somewhat delirious and often woke up with nightmares. And that child was also consistent with the recent information. No matter where he went, he would bring a young child with him. Some people suspected that the child was his illegitimate child with the world society's leader. In order to avoid disturbing people's hearts, this information was strictly kept secret. Only a few people in the Snow Mountain sect knew about it, and she happened to be one of them. All the characteristics matched. This person must be the hero King Li Qingshan. Mph, at least you know what's good for you. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you know some martial arts. Just know what this place is. Shopkeeper Hong pointed at the Snow Mountain outside the door, feeling proud and pleased. Snow Mountain sect. Li Qingshan stared at the white snow on the mountain peak. This was the last nail in the World Society's territory in the northern region. He would personally remove it and test out his new supernatural power. Yes, since you are a martial artist, it is impossible that you don't know. These are all outstanding disciples of the Snow Mountain sect. The one in the middle is the daughter of the leader of the Snow Mountain sect, Miss Xue, one of the top 10 beauties in the world. Shopkeeper Hong raised his hand and introduced. If not for the fact that Schwebing did not dare to act rashly, she could not help but scold this old man. "Oh." Li Qingshan turned his head and looked at Schwebing. Schwebing felt that the pair of spirited eyes seemed to have penetrated the veil and saw her face clearly, or even saw through her entire person. Her heartbeat suddenly accelerated and she felt numb all over her body. Shopkeeper Hong lectured Li Qingshan with a serious face. "It's fine if you splashed the rainwater on me, but you didn't even apologize when you splashed it on them. Do you really have no manners? It's just a few drops of rainwater, why are you so stingy?" All right, don't stare at me. I came in a hurry, I'm sorry. Old man, do you want me to wash your clothes for you?" Li Qingshan teased shopkeeper Hong with a smile and reached out to grab his lapel. They were at the foot of the mountain of the Snow Mountain sect, so of course there would be people from the Snow Mountain sect. It was nothing strange. If the leader of the Snow Mountain sect was here, it would save them a lot of trouble. They would not have to go up the mountain. What could a young lady do? Schwebing felt relieved and ordered her brothers, "They didn't do it on purpose, don't be so calculative. Sit down. Uncle Hong, I don't have much of an appetite, you entertain the guest." The few of them were obedient to her and immediately sat down obediently, treating this as an insignificant interlude. "The young lady is magnanimous and let you off this time. Hey, let go, don't tear it. I have a wife at home, I don't need you to wash my clothes. Shopkeeper Hong looked at the funny smiling face and could not help but smile. You really look like a monkey. Do you want to drink wine? I thought you didn't want to sell. Still not selling, I'll treat you. Hey, I'm afraid you can't afford it. Go out and ask around. My Snow Mountain restaurant has 100 jars of Snow Mountain wine in our ancestral cellar. Take 1 jar and keep 1 jar, no more, no less. How many jars can you drink? But I'll say this first, you're not allowed to use your inner energy to make wine. What's the point of using your inner energy to make wine? Snow Mountain wine, auspicious snow heralds a fruitful year, good name, quickly give it a try. You treat me to wine, I'll treat you to meat. You can use your inner energy to make meat however you like. Look at your impatient face, it's not the fong as in fruitful year, it's the fong as in peak. Using inner energy to make meat, only you can think of that. Since it's raining today and I have nothing to do, I'll accompany you to drink a few cups. Xiaobei, go get the wine and meat. Shopkeeper Hong sat down in a dignified manner and generously gave out his orders. Haha, I used to plow the fields. Li Qingshan sat opposite him and glanced at Luo Huxiaoming. See, I came at the right time, right? Someone is treating me to wine, it tastes especially good. Luo Huxiaoming pouted, jumped on the table and shook off the rain on his body. Sigh, you brought such a young child out for a stroll. Xiaobei, get a towel. He was the one who insisted on following, I had no choice. Hey, hurry up and thank me. Thank you. Luo Huxiaoming took the towel, but his heart was filled with a strange feeling. It was the first time in his life that he thanked an ant-like mortal for such an insignificant towel. He suddenly frowned, lowered his head, and fell into deep thought. This child is my son. You're my son. Luo Huxiaoming jumped up and kicked Li Qingshan's chest. If it was a long time ago, this kick would have destroyed the snowy mountain outside the door, but now, it did not even tickle him. Sigh, I've spoiled you too much. Please excuse me. Luo Huxiaoming glared at him, a longing for power that he had not felt for a long time ignited in his chest. The waiter came over with a pot of wine and a steaming pot of braised meat. You used to plow the fields, why did you stop plowing? Shopkeeper Hong asked casually. I lost the cow, so I came out to look for it. Shopkeeper Hong laughed out loud, thinking that he was joking. This is the first time I've heard of your reason for roaming the martial world, but a man's ambition is to roam the world. If you didn't roam the world, you wouldn't have learned such good martial arts. The rain poured down, hitting the roof tiles. It was noisy yet quiet, and the liveliness made it seem even more peaceful. The sound of thunder, on the other hand, became softer. It was not easy to attract thunder in such a small city, and the heavens could not do anything to Li Qingshan, who was in the building. When the wine was poured into the bowl, just as Li Qingshan was about to take it up, Luo Huxiaoming suddenly snatched the bowl and drank it in one gulp, which made shopkeeper Hong's eyes widen. I've never seen such a young child drink so much. Bring another bowl. Li Qingshan asked the waiter to come to the table, and said to shopkeeper Hong, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it all by yourself. I'll pour wine for you. The waiter came over with a smile, thinking that this man was much cuter than the group of Snow Mountain sect disciples. But of course, he was still not as good as the Missy. In the windy and rainy restaurant, a few people with completely different identities sat and drank. Xuebing looked over, finding it hard to believe that this person was the devil that second uncle mentioned, who stood on the mountain of corpses. Chapter 1204. Missy. Shopkeeper Hong and the waiter stood up hurriedly. The Snow Mountain sect disciples were stunned too. Li Qingshan leaned over the table and munched away. He glanced at her and said with a muffled voice, Sit. She gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine and said to shopkeeper Hong and the waiter, Why are you standing? Xuebing sat down and said, You guys sit too. The two of them sat down carefully. Li Qingshan shook his head, Women spoil the mood when men drink. Xuebing took off her bamboo hat and revealed her face. Her skin was as white as snow and her hair was as black as ink. She was indeed a beauty. She patted the wine jar and a drop of wine fell into the bowl. She opened her lips and drank it in one gulp, revealing the bottom of the bowl. I came uninvited. This bowl of wine is my apology, junior sister, senior sister. The Snow Mountain sect disciples were stunned. She had never touched wine before. They had never seen her drink like this. They all stood up. Sit down, Schwebing shouted. Her fair face blushed, making her look even more beautiful. The waiter at the side did not dare to look at her. The Snow Mountain sect disciples also felt that something was wrong. They slowly sat down and placed their hands on the hilt of their swords. Li Qingshan smiled. You are a heroine. But you are not allowed to turn your vital energy into wine, of course. Schwebing felt a burning sensation in her stomach. She gritted her teeth and endured it. This gave her courage and she asked directly, May I know why you are here? To avoid lightning. You are a man, yet you are afraid of lightning? I have no choice. I have done too many good deeds. The heavens cannot tolerate it. Li Qingshan shrugged. I have only heard that lightning will strike evil people. Schwebing felt the effects of the wine spread and forgot her fear. She gradually felt the benefits of the wine and drank another bowl. Which evil person in the world was struck to death by lightning? It has always been people who kill and set fires. It has always been people who repair bridges and roads. Then are you going to be a person who kills and sets fires, or a person who repairs bridges and roads? Neither. The heavens are unfair. I will do justice for them. During the conversation, Li Qingshan drank several bowls of wine. He finished the jar of wine and said, Go get more wine. How arrogant of you, sir. Schwebing's emotions surged. She no longer had any doubts. Only the Hero King could say such arrogant words. Who else could it be? Li Qingshan suddenly smiled. But this is a small matter. This is a small matter. Schwebing asked curiously, then what's the big deal? Looking for cows. Schwebing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Then you don't need to look for it. I can give you one. Li Qingshan said, Little girl, even if you give me 10,000 cows, they can't compare to that one of mine. Luo Hu Xiaoming couldn't hold his liquor. She was dozing off with her hand supporting her head. When she heard this, she suddenly looked at him thoughtfully. Little girl. Schwebing revealed a strange expression. Forget it, forget it. Let's not talk about this. Let's drink. Li Qingshan asked Manager Hong again. Just now, there is one of the top 10 beauties in the world you mentioned. Who are the other 9? Why are you asking this? Manager Hong asked cautiously. I was thinking, if I could marry all of these beauties, wouldn't that be great? This was the dream of all men in the world, but no one dared to say it, let alone in front of one of them. You're crazy. Manager Hong shouted, Missy, don't lower yourself to this drunkard's level. How dare you? The disciples of the Snow Mountain sect drew their swords. Schwebing waved her hand, signaling for everyone to be quiet. Then you'll be disappointed. Is that so? There are only 9 of the so-called top 10 beauties left. No matter how capable you are, it will be difficult for you to marry all of them. Hey, Missy, are you going to quit and not be one of the top 10 beauties? I don't think you need to be very capable for this small matter. This is a false reputation imposed by the world. If I could quit, I would have done so long ago. However, one of the beauties has already passed away, unless you can bring her back to life. That's a pity. To think that someone would be willing to destroy a beauty so ruthlessly. What a waste. Let me propose a toast to her. Li Qingshan took a big gulp of wine. He said it casually, but he didn't think it was a pity. Schwebing said coldly, Are you still trying to hide it? Isn't the person who ruthlessly destroyed the flower your distinguished self? Me? When? Li Qingshan was shocked. He really didn't know. Who would specifically come to talk to him like this? That beauty was from the Ma family. She died at the foot of the Galloping Horse City. It was said that the king of chivalry, Li Qingshan, killed her personally. Ah. There was a commotion in the restaurant. Manager Hong's eyes widened. He stood up and retreated, tripped over the bench, and fell on his butt. The disciples of the Snow Mountain sect drew their swords and held them in front of them, but no one dared to step forward. The reputation of the king of chivalry was like the sun in the sky in the northern region. Everyone feared him. This small restaurant suddenly became as terrifying as the devil's domain. Li Qingshan tried hard to recall. It seems so. I've killed countless people in my life. It's really hard for me to distinguish beauty from ugliness. I've embarrassed myself, Miss Xue. But I've killed her. Come, let's drink. So, you admit it? Xue Bing asked. She mustered all her courage to continue sitting there. Yes, I'm Li Qingshan. Besides, when did I hide anything? If you asked me, I would have told you. At this point, Li Qingshan suddenly stood up. Xue Bing felt a huge shadow covering her, and she almost couldn't breathe. She saw him looking outside the door. The rain has stopped. The summer storm came and went quickly. The dark clouds dispersed, and rays of light fell on the snow mountain, glowing with a holy light. Old man, thank you for the wine. This is the money for the meat. Li Qingshan threw a silver ingot, picked up Luo Hu Xiaoming, and walked out the door. Xue Bing flew in front of the door. Where are you going? Up the mountain, of course. Can't you let the Snow Mountain sect go? How can I let others sleep next to my bed? You call yourself the king of chivalry and say that you will enforce justice on behalf of heaven. The Snow Mountain sect has never bullied the good like the Ma family. If not, there would be no Snow Mountain sect in the world. Don't worry, I'm not going to kill anyone today. But this is the general trend. If you're not a friend or an enemy, you have to end it. I've never done a bad thing in my life. If I stop you, will you kill me? Little girl, look at what you're holding in your hand. A swordsman dies by the sword. What's there to complain about? Get out of the way. You don't want me to become a sworn enemy of the Snow Mountain sect now, do you? Li Qingshan killed one. He didn't care about killing the second one. He destroyed the Ma family. He didn't care about destroying the Snow Mountain sect. Even if he was innocent and good, he just had to bear the sin. There was no need to blame himself or try to defend himself. His determination to move forward would never change. Even if he was a good person for 10 generations. Buddha is born in all. Those who stand in my way will die. Xue Bing bit her lips. Her expression changed. She sheathed her sword. Get out of the way. Although this man was called Chivalrous King, the word chivalrous could not restrain him. That's good. Li Qingshan brushed past Xue Bing and stepped out of the door. He took a deep breath. The air was filled with the fragrance of the soil after the rain. He stepped on the ground barefoot. He crossed 10 feet with each step and strode towards the snow mountain. Xue Bing used her lightness skill and caught up with him. I'll send you up the mountain. All right, let's continue drinking on the mountain. I hope someone will treat me. Li Qingshan smiled and smacked his lips, as if he was still savoring the taste of the wine. If others don't, I will. Xue Bing could hear the murderous intent in his words. She knew that the Snow Mountain sect's survival depended on today. Senior sister, junior sister. The disciples of the Snow Mountain sect rushed out of the door. Their figures became 2 small dots as they climbed up the snow mountain. Shopkeeper Hong took a long time to come back to his senses. He was scared and broke out in a cold sweat on such a hot day. That was Li Qingshan. He dared to give him a hard time and teach him a lesson in front of so many people. He really didn't know how to spell the word death. The waiter was so excited that his face turned red. Shopkeeper, did you see that? That's the chivalrous king. If it weren't for his magnanimity, your head would have been removed. Ouch. Shopkeeper Hong jumped up and took out the martial arts that he hadn't used for many years. He kicked the waiter's butt. You're the one with your head removed. Hurry up and work. The waiter rubbed his butt and said indignantly, wait until I join the World Assembly and learn a peerless martial arts. Let's see if you still dare to kick me then. Shopkeeper Hong smiled bitterly and murmured to himself, you live up to your reputation. Now the Snow Mountain sect is in trouble. Li Qingshan didn't follow the right path. He crossed the river and climbed over the ravine. He crossed the snow line and looked back at the white clouds. After a short pause, Xue Bing caught up with him. She was already out of breath. She had just reached the innate realm, so her genuine qi wasn't as abundant as before. Do you want to rest for a while? Li Qingshan asked with a smile. No need. Shui Bing clenched her teeth. She was now representing the Snow Mountain sect. However, Li Qingshan lay down and basked in the sun comfortably. Shui Bing quickly sat down to regulate her breathing. He didn't deliberately embarrass her. She couldn't help but feel grateful. However, she felt strange. He's here to deal with the Snow Mountain sect. Why should I be grateful to him? Chivalrous king, you went up the mountain alone. Aren't you afraid of getting trapped there? Are you worried about my safety? I'm advising you to back off. Li Qingshan laughed loudly. His voice was so loud that it shook the clouds. Shui Bing suddenly felt that it was a pity for a man like him to be trapped in a desperate situation. She shook her head and felt that it was ridiculous. There were so many people in the world who wanted to kill him. If there was a chance, she wouldn't let it go. However, who could stop him? I'm done resting. Let's go. Voices came from the main hall of the Snow Mountain sect. A man anxiously advised, Leader Shui, your disciple can testify that the devil Li Qingshan has piled up corpses like a mountain. He's bloodthirsty. He won't let the Snow Mountain sect go. Please make a decision quickly and fight against the world society together. Yes, Master. It's impossible for the Snow Mountain sect to fight against the world society alone. We can only fight with all the people in the martial arts world. In the hall, a group of elders gathered together. Everyone had a worried look on their faces. Sect leader Shui Hanfeng was silent. At this moment, a man and a woman walked into the hall. Shui Hanfeng was surprised. Bing er. Chapter 1205. Li Qingshan looked at the two people who spoke. They were an old man and a young man. He had seen them outside of Galloping Horse City. They were the innate masters who surrounded the former Alliance Master Zhong Yuntian. They escaped when Jiyu Yangying was possessed. The young man was a handsome young man dressed in white. He was a disciple of the Snow Mountain faction. The old man was obviously here to persuade them. It seemed that there were still people who were not willing to lose and wanted to compete with him. Everyone in the hall was shocked. The sound of swords being unsheathed could be heard. Binger, come here quickly, Shui Hanfeng said as he activated the faction's formation. The temperature in the hall dropped sharply. It was the height of summer, but at this moment, the air became foggy. Li Qingshan felt the cold air getting heavier. A layer of frost condensed under his feet and quickly spread up. Li Qingshan ignored him. He pointed at the old man who tried to persuade him and flicked his thumb backwards. The old man felt as if he had been pardoned. He dashed out of the door and left. Everyone was shocked. He was a famous figure for many years, but he ran away without saying a word. He did not know that after seeing Li Qingshan kill people, he did not have the courage to face him. He was not afraid of dying in battle, but he did not want to be crushed to death like a bug. Stop! Li Qingshan shouted. The old man had just crossed the threshold. When he heard this, he stood there as if he was nailed to the ground. He did not dare to move. Li Qingshan said without turning his head, "Hey, I have spared your life twice. Why don't you say thank you?" The old man's expression changed. He bowed his head and cupped his hands. "Thank you for sparing my life. I can do it twice, but not thrice. If it happens again, you should join the world faction." The old man raised his head and looked at Li Qingshan's back. He nodded heavily. "All right." He then said to Shui Hanfeng, "Leader Shui, I have known you for many years. I know that you are kind and righteous. You cannot bear to see the Snow Mountain faction end up like the Ma family. You should surrender." He let out another heavy sigh and left without looking back. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was the one who spoke for them? Li Qingshan glanced at the young man in white again. He was like a mouse that had seen a cat. He shivered and lowered his head, not saying a word. Shui Bing felt a wave of pain in her heart. Was this still the arrogant eldest senior brother of the past? Shui Hanfeng solemnly cupped his hands. "I am Shui Hanfeng, the 19th generation sect leader of the Snow Mountain sect. The chivalrous king has graced us with your presence, and I apologize for not going out to meet you. Sect leader Shui, let's cut to the chase. Do you want to fight or surrender? Li Qingshan took a step forward. With a loud boom, the great hall trembled and the frost scattered. I don't know how to fight or surrender. If you really want to fight, then let's do it together. There was no need to be so particular. If you surrender, there will no longer be the Snow Mountain sect. There will only be the Snow Mountain Hall of the World Assembly, and you will still be the Hall Master. Everyone's heart sank. They wanted to destroy the Snow Mountain sect. If not for the words left by the old man just now. He was afraid that there would be people scolding him immediately. At this moment, they all stepped forward with their swords, showing that they would live and die with the Snow Mountain sect. Only the young man in white did not move. He stared blankly at the ground and murmured, "It's useless. It's useless." Schwebing no longer looked at him. The eldest senior brother of the past was already dead. He was not killed by others, but by fright. She pulled away from Li Qingshan and returned to her father's side. Then she looked back. Li Qingshan stood in front of the hall unmoving like a mountain. The demonic aura he emitted filled the hall, like a black cloud pressing on the snow mountain. It was almost impossible to compare it with the restaurant that was in a sorry state. She thought of the smiling man who was scolded by the manager. But when she looked carefully, she found that there was no change in him. His bright round eyes seemed to always be smiling, but at this moment, there was a playful look in them. Shui Hanfeng took a deep breath. The Snow Mountain sect and the World Assembly will mind our own business. I am willing to give up everything at the foot of the mountain. I swear that I will never be the enemy of the World Assembly. Li Qingshan shook his head. No, I have already said this to your daughter. The general trend is irresistible. If you are not an enemy, then you must be a friend. There is no room for indifference. Shui Hanfeng was also irritated. You are pushing us too far. The Snow Mountain sect has been passed down for hundreds of years. How can it be destroyed in my hands? Leader Shui, you are really stubborn. Birth, old age, sickness, and death are inevitable. Creation, existence, destruction, and emptiness are all things. You can take a long-term view. When I unify the world, there will be no difference between sects. This is the general trend. Those who follow it will prosper, and those who go against it will die. If the Snow Mountain sect becomes the Snow Mountain Hall, it will be more prosperous. It will be reborn in your hands. Li Qingshan opened his arms. He looked like he could swallow the world. The expression on his face did not look like he was saying some heroic words. Instead, it looked like it was natural for him to eat and drink. Shui Hanfeng clenched his fists. He had never encountered such a difficult choice in his life. Suddenly, he sighed and waved his hand. The temperature in the hall began to rise again. Leader, you can't do that. I would rather die than join the World Assembly. The crowd in the hall was furious. Schwebing bit her lips. Her eyes were filled with tears. Was this man, who was as majestic as a mountain in her heart, going to surrender to that man's shadow? Li Qingshan smiled. That is a wise move. Shui Hanfeng slowly pulled out his sword and pointed it at Li Qingshan. Leader Shui, what do you mean? Shui Hanfeng said decisively. As the leader, if I surrender without a fight, how can I face my ancestors? I only want a fair fight. I want to see the peerless martial arts of the Hero King. Why? Li Qingshan could see that he was ready to die. He admired him a little. Father, don't. Schwebing said in panic. She would rather him surrender than die. Leader, you don't have to worry about the rules of Jianghu. Let's fight together. Bing stand down. Shui Hanfeng said to the crowd. If I lose, the Snow Mountain sect will become the Snow Mountain Hall. No one is allowed to avenge me. This is the order of the leader. Li Qingshan smiled. Sect Master Shui, if I kill you, let alone the others, your daughter will hate me for the rest of her life. If she attacks me, all I can do is give her a swift death. I really can't bring myself to do that. Fine, I respect you as a man who has done many chivalrous deeds. Today, If I touch a finger of yours or take half a step back, I lose. What do you think? Schwebing was pleasantly surprised. Her expression was complicated. She didn't know whether she should thank him or hate him. Xue Hanfeng agreed. Okay, it's a deal, he thought. Even if your martial arts are peerless, if you can't even touch a finger of mine, how can you win? His sword made a flower. The bright blue flower did not dissipate. The flower bloomed in the air, layer by layer. It was like snowflakes piling up, getting thicker and thicker. His first move was the mega avalanche of the Snow Mountain sect's supreme skill, the bright snow swordsmanship. As expected, Li Qingshan did not move at all. He allowed him to build up his power. Everyone was extremely nervous. Suddenly, they heard a yawn. Luo Hu Xiaoming climbed onto his shoulder. He drowsily held his head and looked around lazily. Xue Hanfeng frowned. I am the leader of the Snow Mountain sect. How can I attack a young child? Is this his plot? Li Qingshan smiled. Leader Xue, you don't have to worry. If you kill this kid, it's on me. Watch my sword. Xue Hanfeng made up his mind. He raised his aura to its peak. True qi surged like a raging wave. Only then did Li Qingshan stretch out his hand. His fingers were slightly open. Waves of demonic energy gathered in his hand, but it did not burst out. Xue Hanfeng suddenly stopped in midair. The dazzling flower of his sword froze. It was as if it was sealed in an invisible amber. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. Everyone's eyes widened. They could not see what move Li Qingshan had used. It looked like he had just stretched out his hand and Xue Hanfeng had been defeated. Just as he said, he had not touched a single finger. Father. Xue Bing hurried over to support him. Xue Hanfeng pushed her hand away and stood up. His heart was full of resentment. What kind of martial art is this? It's not martial art. It's magic. The first magic of the ape demon transformation. Magic. Are you a demon? Yes and no, no and no. What is your relationship with the White Ape King? Nothing. I just cut off his head. You lost. Xue Bing shouted at Li Qingshan. How did I lose? You said you would not touch a single finger of my father, but you heavily injured him. Does magic not count? Sigh. Women are really unreasonable. Why don't you ask your father if I hurt him? Bing no need to quibble. I lost. Xue Hanfeng could not be clearer. All the injuries he had suffered were caused by the rebound of his true qi. Xue Bing lowered her head sadly, tears streaming down her face. Cheating. Luo Hu Xiaoming curled his lips. Li Qingshan's magic had no offensive power at all. It could not even kill an ant. But the effect of this magic had shocked him the first time he had seen it. This was not some body-fixing spell, but a direct sealing of the void. Xue Hanfeng, the leader of the Snow Mountain Hall, greets the Hero King. Xue Hanfeng stepped forward and bowed. The elders and disciples of the Snow Mountain sect, whether they were willing or not, also came forward and bowed. In the martial arts world, the strong were respected. As the first senior brother of the Snow Mountain sect, the young man in white let out a great sigh of relief as well. He felt like this was the best possible outcome, but he was also worried about whether Li Qingshan had overheard what he had said earlier in the hall and developed a grudge against him. Li Qingshan said, Leader Xue, listen to my order. Yes. Li Qingshan smiled and said, bring the wine. Xue Hanfeng was startled. He thought it was an important order. I did not drink to my heart's content at the foot of the mountain. Let's continue. Your daughter said so. Xue Bing remembered what he said at the foot of the mountain and did not know whether to laugh or cry. That night, there was a banquet in the hall. Xue Hanfeng took the opportunity to ask, Your Highness, what do you want the Snow Mountain sect to do? Li Qingshan pondered for a while and spread his hands. I also do not know. Xue Hanfeng was speechless. Did you destroy the Snow Mountain sect just to have a drink? This is too unfair. I was bored in the Galloping Horse City, so I came out to play. I am not the leader of the world, I do not care about these trivial matters. When we get to the Galloping Horse City, you can ask him yourself. Li Qingshan said impatiently, drink, drink. Shui Hanfeng's eyes widened. He could not suppress his internal injuries and spat out a mouthful of blood. Father! Father! Shui Bing rushed forward. Your father is drunk, quickly send him back to rest. Shui Bing raised her eyebrows. How is he drunk? He was obviously angered by you. P.S. Chapter 1207. Shui Hanfeng bowed and left. Shui Bing helped him back to the backyard. Shui Hanfeng looked up at the crescent moon in the sky, floating in the sea of clouds. Suddenly, tears rolled down his cheeks, and he sighed, the snow mountain sect is gone. As soon as he said this, he seemed to age 10 years. Father! Shui Bing's tears fell like rain. The world is in chaos once the demon star appears. Maybe it's fate. It's not fate. Shui Bing came out from the backyard. A handsome young man came up to her. Junior Marshal sister, Master, is he okay? Sigh, that kind of power is not something a human can fight against. Maybe following the World Assembly is the best choice. And this is without the heroic lord using his sword. What a blessing in disguise. Is the banquet over? Where is the heroic lord now? Shui Bing asked coldly, admiring the moon on the flying snow cliff. What are you going to do? I'm going to make a deal with him. Shui Bing walked towards the flying snow cliff. You. Eldest senior brother seemed to have realized something. He wanted to follow her, but he could only watch as her figure disappeared. Li Qingshan's legs dangled off the cliff. He looked up at the new moon in the sky and wondered if the moon was the same as the 9 prefectures. Was little and also looking at the same moon? Footsteps sounded behind him. Li Qingshan turned around and asked, "How's your father?" The moonlight shone on Shui Bing's face. It seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. She cupped her hands and said, "Heroic lord, you said in the restaurant at the foot of the mountain that you want to marry the world's top 10 beauties." Li Qingshan corrected, 9 beauties. Yes, I like 9. I can be the first. Wives, concubines, and servants are fine. As long as you let the Snow Mountain sect go, I'll be yours. Shui Bing puffed out her chest and said sternly. Li Qingshan laughed out loud. What are you laughing at? Shui Bing was embarrassed into anger. I'm laughing at you for thinking too highly of the Snow Mountain sect and underestimating yourself. You should go to Galloping Horse City and meet that World Association leader. She doesn't even care about her own father. Everything Shui Bing had came from the Snow Mountain sect. She thought that Li Qingshan was laughing at her for not being qualified to make such an exchange. Hearing this, she couldn't help but feel moved. No one had ever said such a thing to her. It is rumored that the World Society's leader is Jiyu Yangying. She was the #1 beauty in the world. It's a pity that we didn't get to meet. That was just added by someone else. In her heart, there is no such thing as a beauty. That's right, even in front of me, she wouldn't be willing to be the second best in the world. Prince, do you like her very much? Shui Bing asked. She was curious about the woman who could make him reveal such an expression. What would it look like? Li Qingshan pondered for a moment and smiled calmly. That's right. What if she was here to make this deal? Shui Bing suddenly felt a trace of jealousy. She won't. Then I am different from her. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the peace of the Snow Mountain sect. If one day you fly high enough, you will find that this snow mountain is just a small mound. But you see, my vision is quite accurate. If it wasn't for this guy, I would have pounced on it now and then denied everything. Li Qingshan brought up Luo Hu Xiaoming again. Luo Hu Xiaoming glared at him. Whatever, I have seen this kind of thing many times. Shui Bing's face turned red. Is this also called the Hero King? Bullshit Hero King, it's just an empty title. By the way, I have a peerless secret book here. It's called Gooey Water Condensing Chi Method. Do you want to exchange it? I guarantee that I will not cheat anyone. If you buy it, you will make a profit. Shui Bing was stunned for a moment. She fiercely stamped her feet. No. She came here to sacrifice herself for the Snow Mountain sect, not to sell herself for some peerless secret book. She was almost led into a ditch by this man. It was really infuriating. That's a pity. Li Qingshan had an expression of "you've lost a lot" on his face. He asked again, "You really don't want to exchange?" "No, I'll take my leave." Xue Bing angrily clasped her hands together. However, she saw Li Qingshan's expression change. He sneered and said, "You have to exchange even if you don't want to." She felt that her body could not move. She was shocked. Was he going to? Li Qingshan walked towards her step by step. He raised his hand and sealed her acupuncture points. The time she could maintain her supernatural power was really too short. Xue Bing saw his face coming towards her. She couldn't help but close her eyes. However, she heard him say in her ear, "Listen carefully." Then, she heard a series of incantations. She opened her eyes in shock. However, she saw him smiling mischievously. "Don't say any more. I don't want to listen." Li Qingshan ignored her. He smiled and recited the gooey water condensing qi method. This was the first incantation that he had learned. He could still remember it clearly. He did not miss a single word. Xue Bing's body relaxed. Her acupuncture points were unsealed. She saw that he had already walked back to the edge of the cliff. She looked at the rising dark clouds in the sky. It was gradually swallowing a new moon. Without turning her head, she said, "All right, I'm leaving. You guard me." "Where are you going? Who's going to guard you? I never agreed to trade." "I've already forgotten everything you said." This kind of forceful and overbearing behavior made her furious. However, when she heard that he was leaving, she felt a trace of reluctance. "I know you remember. As for where to go, this hero king naturally wants to be a hero. At the same time, I'll take a look at the other 8 beauties." "You're going alone?" Xue Bing understood. The 8 beauties represented the 5 major sects and 3 major clans. If he were to go, he would probably become the enemy of the entire martial world. 2 people. Hey, don't always ignore Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming is very important. Li Qingshan lifted up Luo Hu Xiaoming and shook him vigorously. Luo Hu Xiaoming squinted at him. His body emitted waves of killing intent. If this went on, his fighting spirit would recover before the red lotus bloomed. "Hero King, there are countless strange people in the world. They all have cunning methods. Even if you have peerless martial arts, you might not be able to escape unscathed. Are you worried about me?" "Of course not. I'm worried that you'll make the Snow Mountain sect the laughingstock of the world. So, I hope that you can defeat all the sects and clans." "Haha, thank you for your kind words." Li Qingshan suddenly frowned and said in distress, "By the way, aren't there any cute little nuns in Pudu Temple?" He had to see the demon star suppressed by Pudu Temple. Extracting the spiritual power from it might help him recover a lot of strength. "Of course not," Xue Bing said impatiently. Li Qingshan clapped his hands. "Yes, they don't have one. I'll give them one. Then we'll have the world's top 10 beauties again." "Are you serious?" Xue Bing widened her eyes at his whimsical good idea. She felt angry and funny at the same time. "Yes, you're the first." Li Qingshan grinned and jumped off the cliff. "I'm not." Xue Bing ran to the edge of the cliff and shouted. She only got a burst of laughter in response. She watched his figure disappear into the darkness. The experience of this short half a day was like a dream. There was fear, sadness, hatred, surprise, gratitude, and admiration. In the end, it was like a joke. No man had ever touched her heart like this. "I hope you can come back safely. P.S. I drank a little yesterday and felt a little emotional. But I also know that there must be a lot of opinions. They think that you're so slow, but you have the nerve to nag here. You're shameless to ask for monthly votes. I understand that the deeper the love, the deeper the responsibility. I've always felt guilty. Even if I tried my best, I still couldn't do it. I didn't even have the confidence to say, I wrote slowly because I wrote well." Chapter 1208. Li Qingshan descended the snowy mountain and sprinted southward. At this time, the benefits of a pocket world became apparent. Relying on the endless power of the earth, he ran hundreds of miles overnight and arrived at the middle realm at daybreak. If not for the thunderstorm, he would have been even faster. The weather was obviously much hotter. A red sun rose from the east and soon became daytime, radiating a blazing light that roasted the earth. Li Qingshan finally stopped. He did not feel tired, but his stomach was growling. He found a main road and walked to see if he could find a city wall along the way to have a big meal. At the same time, he seriously thought about his grand plan. There were no aristocratic families in the Middle Realm, only many gangs and sects. Among them, there were 3 great sects: Pudu Temple, Mysterious Void Temple, and Divine Wind Sect. There was also the world-famous Black Tortoise City, which was where Martial Union was located. The Profound Void Temple and the Divine Wind Sect each possessed one of the 10 great beauties of the world, but Li Qingshan's first target was the Pudu Temple. No matter how he wanted to play around, he would have to increase his strength first before he could play to his heart's content. He had to obtain the Demon Star. However, there was a problem. There were no beauties in Pudu Temple. This was originally a joke. If he was just a lecher, there was no need to force a beauty into a monk temple. However, his personality was influenced by the demonic ape. The more he joked, the more serious he became. He threw the serious matter of conquering the world to the back of his mind, leaving it to Jiyu Yangying to think about. However, he was not familiar with this world. Where could he find a beauty? He could not just find a random woman. She had to be qualified, not to mention her appearance. Her martial arts could not be too weak. It would be best if she had a certain reputation and social recognition. However, he did not think about it. Who would recognize a top 10 beauty from a monk temple? However, when he thought about the expressions of the monks, he found it very interesting and could not help but laugh out loud. Rather than being influenced by the demonic ape, it was better to say that his nature was stimulated. Who is behind you? As he thought about it, a bellow rang out from up ahead. A group of guards stopped in the dust, staring at Li Qingshan cautiously as he strode over. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. He was not familiar with this world. But there was always someone he was familiar with, so he just had to ask. A man with a full beard rode his horse forward and thought to himself, his speed is astonishing, he must be a Xiantian master. The newcomer was definitely not a nobody. We need to be careful. He cupped his hands and said, I am Hu Jun of the Changfeng Escort Agency. May I know your name? May I know why you are here? Chivalrous King Li Qingshan, I'm here to rob you, Li Qingshan said concisely. Li Qingshan. Hu Jun looked as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. He was so shocked that he almost fell off his horse. The armed escorts were also in an uproar. In the short span of 3 months, Li Qingshan's name had spread all over the world. There was no one who did not know of him. There were even many people in the northern region who praised him. In other places, he was a murderous demon king. Li Qingshan walked forward and the escorts retreated. He patted the carriage and asked, What are you escorting? Just some gold and silver. Chivalrous King is rich in the northern region, why would he be interested in a mere escort? Hu Jun dismounted, his back hunched. His expression was bitter as if he had eaten 3 catties of bitter medicine. If this was a nameless person, then there would be no famous person in the world. Let me ask you a question. If you can answer it, I won't rob you anymore. Chivalrous King, please ask. Hu Jun's heart sank. He did not think that Huang Xiaolong would be so easy to talk to. This question was either to make things difficult for him or to probe into Martial Union's secrets. Where are the most beauties in the world? No, where are the most beauties in the middle region? Li Qingshan did not want to beat around the bush. Ah! Hu Jun was stunned, wondering if he had misheard. This murderous demon king chased after him just to ask such a question? Li Qingshan raised his hand impatiently, and the carriage flew out, crashing into a large tree by the side of the road. The tree broke into 2, and bright silver scattered on the ground. Hu Jun quivered, cupping his hands as he said, reporting to Chivalrous King, the beauties in the middle region are naturally in Black Tortoise City. Then, what famous beauties are there in Black Tortoise City? There is a Miss Hu Xian in the Myriad Flower Brothel. She is known as a fairy descended from heaven, and she is definitely one of the top 10 beauties in the world. Then, Where is Black Tortoise City? Li Qingshan's eyes lit up again. He never thought there would be such a suitable candidate. He really did not take any effort at all. Follow this road and head south. Black Tortoise City is less than 500 miles away. Li Qingshan left as soon as he said he would, taking large strides towards Black Tortoise City. For a moment, he even forgot about his hunger. Hu Jin raised his head and looked for a long time. After confirming that the figure had already disappeared into the horizon, he wiped the sweat off his forehead, discovering that he looked as if he had just been fished out of water. An old escort said, "Chief Escort, isn't Alliance Master Zhong holding a martial arts conference in Black Tortoise City to discuss how to deal with the world faction? And that Hu Xian, didn't she announce to the world that no matter who can get rid of Li Qingshan, whether they are young or old, monk or commoner, they will be willing to devote their lives to him? Ch, that's exactly what I want to lure him to Black Tortoise City. Right now, all the heroes of the world are gathered in the city. The leaders of the 6 great sects and the masters of the 3 great aristocratic families are all there. That Hu Xian is not simple either. I heard that as long as a man has seen her face, he will be willing to lose his life for her. This time, he dares to head south to Black Tortoise City alone. He has stepped into a trap. A young escort came over to fawn over him. Chief Escort is really brave. You can still think of such things in such an urgent situation. I'm not afraid of everyone laughing at me, but I was so scared just now that my stomach and legs were cramping. No one would laugh at him. Just now, who wasn't scared half to death? Furthermore, there were rumors in the martial world that even Alliance Master Zhong had to obediently give up his position as Alliance Master when he saw Li Qingshan. In his eyes, a mere escort was probably not even comparable to an ant. Everyone was full of praises and praised the chief escort for being wise and mighty. It was as if they had all gone blind. They could not see Hu Jin's legs, which were still trembling under the sun. Immediately ride my horse back to the escort agency. Use a messenger pigeon to notify Black Tortoise City. Tell them that the great demon, Li Qingshan, is about to arrive. Hu Jin knew very well that his mind was blank at that time. He did not dare to say a single lie, so there was no way he could think so much. As for whether the heroes of Black Tortoise City would be able to take down Li Qingshan or whether Miss Hu Xian would be in big trouble, that was not something he could care about. After all, he was not the one who would die. In Black Tortoise City, the martial arts circle convention that gathered all the heroes of the world had sunk into a gloomy atmosphere. A moment ago, the old man who was sent to Snow Mountain Sect to act as a lobbyist came back on his 1,000-li horse. He only said one thing. Snow Mountain Sect might have already fallen. I'm leaving. I definitely can't meet him a 3rd time, or else I will have to join the World Assembly. Chapter 1209. Under the illumination of the brilliant lights, a large round table was carved with the word Wu in the middle, surrounded by the carvings of the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 seasons. The outermost part was carved with 12 pictures, namely, a whirlwind, a snowflake, a Buddha, and a Pegasus. These were the symbols of the world's 7 major sects and 4 major families. The specially empty seat corresponded to the dragon of the 12 zodiac signs. The Chen of the 12 seasons was to commemorate the first leader of the Wulin Alliance, Long Potian. He had single-handedly established the Wulin Alliance and established the order of the Wulin world for hundreds of years. Later, he shattered the void and left, becoming a legend. However, he was not born in an aristocratic family or a sect, so he was known to the outside world. Currently, the people sitting here were the leaders of the various families and sects. But now, there were 2 more empty seats, a Pegasus and a Snowflake. They belonged to the Ma family and the Snow Mountain sect. Now everyone knew that no one would come to these 2 seats. There were more people sitting on the periphery. They were the heroes who had been summoned. At this moment, all of them looked at Zhong Yuntian in silence. The Wulin Alliance had been established for hundreds of years. Every time a demonic sect brought disaster to the Wulin world, the Wulin Alliance would convene a Wulin assembly to suppress them. But there had never been a scene like this. The leader of the Wulin Alliance had actually quit. Abbot Fu Ku of the Pudu Temple chanted the name of Buddha and advised, Amitabha. Almsgiver Zhong, you're wrong. I was forced by the situation outside the Galloping Horse City. The position of the Wulin Alliance is not something that can be taken away with just a few words. It's a pity that my junior brother Fu who hated evil and killed evil all his life, died in the hands of this demon. The head of the Xuanxu temple also said, what Master said makes sense. A few days ago, there was a rumor that my senior brother also died in the hands of the demon. Now it has been confirmed. His corpse has been transported back from the northern region, but it's badly mutilated. It's really sad to see Li Qingshan, this demon, is too cruel and intolerable. Zhong Yuntian sighed, my condolences, you too. I'm also a survivor of a disaster. I just want to stay alive in this chaotic world. I really don't want to be involved in these Wulin disputes anymore. However, he sneered inside. An important figure from each sect had died to Li Qingshan's hands. Their grievances were basically irreconcilable. The Snow Mountain sect could go with the flow and surrender to the World Union, but they could not. Naturally, he could only resist with determination. The master of the Lu family of the eastern region slammed the table and stood up. That devil is still roaming freely in the northern region. Now is not the time to grieve. Alliance leader Zhong already has half a foot in the sky, but have you ever thought about what will happen to the Divine Wind sect when that devil head goes south? Don't tell me you are going to watch helplessly as it gets destroyed by that devil head. Although the world is big, we have no way to retreat. The Ma family and the Snow Mountain sect are already examples. If we still don't unite, we might as well join the World Assembly now. Forget about bowing down to that Li Qingshan. Why are you still holding the Martial Arts Circle Assembly? The other two aristocratic families immediately agreed. The Ma family of the northern region was really miserable. Zhong Yuntian remained silent, but in his heart, he thought, you aristocratic families usually do whatever you want. Do you know fear now? Everyone tried to persuade Zhong Yuntian to stay. Normally, the various sects would fight for the position of alliance leader. Now, however, it had become a hot potato. After thinking about it, they could only let Zhong Yuntian continue as the alliance leader. At the very least, Li Qingshan's first attack would not be directed at them. Even if they failed in the end, it would still be the alliance leader and the entire martial union's failure. Zhong Yuntian pondered for a long time. Finally, he said, I can continue as the alliance leader, but I want the Divine Dragon Jade Seal to wield the authority of the Great Alliance Leader. Great Alliance Leader. Everyone was shocked. Since the establishment of martial union, there had only been one Great Alliance Leader, and that was the first alliance leader, Long Potian. Not only did Long Potian wield the power of life and death, but he could also abolish patriarchs and sect leaders at will. Alliance leader Zhong, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. Someone immediately objected. Who would be willing to place their lives in the hands of others? The difference between alliance leader and great alliance leader is only a single word. We are just following orders, so why go through the trouble? It's too stuffy here. I'll go outside to get some fresh air. Why don't you all discuss this properly here? As long as a single person disagrees, I'll immediately retreat from Black Tortoise City and return to the Divine Wind sect to enter closed-door training. Zhong Yuntian flicked his sleeves and left. I don't have that much authority, yet you want me to bear such a heavy responsibility. Dream on. A young girl stood up and chased after Zhong Yuntian. Wind blew under her feet, and not a speck of dust landed on her body. Her movement technique was top-notch, and her appearance was exquisite. If it were any other day, there would definitely be many people cheering for her. Now, however, no one was in the mood to do so. They all lowered their heads and pondered over Zhong Yuntian's words. On the high platform, Zhong Yuntian recalled the night of the Fiend Star's descent. A young girl's voice rang out from behind him, Master, is that demon really that powerful? Could it be that even so many experts couldn't do anything to him? Zhong Yuntian looked at the young girl, and a smile appeared on his face. Xian Feng, you didn't see it, but he's not just powerful. He killed Ma Shinkong across the river, and then he killed tiger-subduing monk in front of us. I didn't even see how he attacked. How is that possible? Zhong Xianfeng was speechless. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Even if Long Potian was still alive, he wouldn't be his match. But I believe he's not invincible. If it's a battle of attrition, he might have a chance of winning, but the person leading the charge will definitely die. Then, Master, you must not lead the charge. Zhong Xuanfeng's face was filled with concern. Why would Master do such a stupid thing? Zhong Yuntian sneered. The Great Alliance leader could order others to die. Moreover, he discovered a big secret in the divine dragon jade seal left behind by Long Potian. It wasn't impossible for him to defeat Li Qingshan. Even if he couldn't win, he could still shatter the void and ascend. At that time, no matter how chaotic the world was, what did it have to do with Zhong Yuntian? Zhong Xianfeng suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Zhong Yuntian said gently, "The boat will cross the bridge when it comes to it. You don't have to worry too much. Do whatever you want." Yes, with Master here, I'm not afraid of that Li Qingshan. Zhong Xianfeng smiled innocently and thought to himself, do whatever I want. It's not like I'm going to die soon. It seems like I can't even rely on Master this time. Forget it, this has nothing to do with me. When that Li Qingshan comes, I'll immediately pack up and run. It's better than becoming a ghost under the blade of the Ma family's misty. I could have sold my body. After all, I'm one of the top 10 beauties in the world. But I heard that Li Qingshan is actually a monkey. He doesn't know how to distinguish between beauty and ugliness. I'm afraid this trick won't work. Both master and disciple had their own thoughts, but they had the same thought. The day gradually shifted, and the Lu family's patriarch personally came to the bottom of the stage. Alliance leader, everyone invites you to go back. Zhong Yuntian smiled and was about to jump off the stage when he suddenly turned around. A grey pigeon was flying from the north. Chapter 12:10. Jie, there is actually someone who dares to ask this old man. An old man turned around, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth with a sinister green face. Who are you? If you don't know, I'll go ask someone else. Kid, you actually don't know who I am? Go back and prepare for your funeral. The old man waved his chicken claw-like hand. So, it's a madman. This wretched heavens, giving me trouble even by asking a question. Li Qingshan cursed. There were so many people on the street, and any one of them was a madman. His luck was truly terrible. If he knew this old man's identity, he would know that his luck was not just terrible, but downright terrible. This old man was the Five Venoms cult master, an expert of the demonic path who was as famous as the Seven Slaughtering Demon Lord and the Phantom Dancer. His poison techniques were unparalleled in the martial world, and he was even more famous for his viciousness. After the Five Venoms cult was destroyed by martial union, he went into hiding, taking advantage of the chaos in the martial world to reappear. This time, he snuck into Black Tortoise City to do something earth-shattering. Just now, with a wave of his hand, he had already poisoned Li Qingshan. You dare curse me? I originally wanted to give you some time to prepare for your funeral. Die now. The Five Venoms cult master's expression sank, and he activated his poison techniques. Li Qingshan felt his palm go numb, and his palm turned blue rapidly. He knew that he had been poisoned, and he could not help but be enraged. He did not provoke anyone, and he just asked a random question. Yet, he encountered such a thing. If you listen to this old man obediently, you can keep your life. Otherwise, before the Five Venoms cult master could finish his sentence, he suddenly found himself unable to move. A slap landed on his face, and he spat out a mouthful of yellow teeth. Who told you to poison me? Li Qingshan pressed down on the Five Venoms cult master and gave him a good beating. He then sealed all of the Five Venoms cult master's major acupoints before lifting him up from the ground. Where is the myriad flower pavilion? The Five Venoms cult master stretched out his chicken claw-like hand, trembling as he pointed in a certain direction. He then narrowed his eyes at Li Qingshan, his heart filled with hatred. He did not think that after roaming the world for so long, even martial union could not do anything to him, he would fail miserably. Fortunately, the other party did not know his identity. Later, when the poison takes effect, I'll make you die a horrible death. Aya. How dare you glare at me? Li Qingshan raised his hand and gave him another slap. Then, he picked up the 5 Venoms cult master and ran away with large strides. If you dare to lie to me, just wait and see how I will deal with you. Greetings, Great Alliance Master. Inside Martial Union's discussion hall, Zhong Yuntian sat on his throne, a solemn expression on his face as he accepted everyone's worship. He had become the second Great Alliance Master in Martial Union's history, yet he was in an extremely foul mood. After everyone had paid their respects, he took out the messenger pigeon and announced, "I've just received news that Li Qingshan has gone south alone. He's heading straight for Black Tortoise City. No, he might already be here." Before he finished speaking, cries of alarm sounded out. Everyone's expression changed. As for the group of innate experts who had met with Li Qingshan before, they all looked towards the main entrance at the same time. Seeing that there was no sign of Li Qingshan, they calmed down a little, but they still seemed restless. What should we do? How dare that devil? I'm afraid he has nothing to fear. The skilled are bold. Hurry up and close the city gates. We can't let him sneak into the city. Zhong Yuntian shook his head. If a city wall could stop Li Qingshan, what was there to be afraid of? This was clearly a mess. How could these people still be considered martial arts experts? They were simply a bunch of country bumpkins who would turn pale at the mere mention of a tiger. The mysterious Void Temple Master said, "Alliance Master, for you to be so calm, do you already have a plan to deal with this devil?" As far as I know, his target isn't here, but the Myriad Flower Tower in the city. Myriad Flower Tower? Yeah. He's not here for us, but for Huxian Amitabha, as expected, his Alecha. Hearing this, everyone involuntarily heaved a sigh of relief. But who knows? He heard that we're holding a Martial Union conference here. Will he come looking for us? Zhong Yuntian changed the topic, and the atmosphere immediately tensed up. What should we do now? Alliance Master, please give the order. This matter concerns the lives of everyone here, and I can't make the decision alone. Right now, we only have 2 options. Either we rush to the Myriad Flower Tower and fight with that Li Qingshan. Our lives are up to fate. Or, we stay here and set up an ambush, waiting for him to walk into the trap, Zhong Yuntian said expressionlessly. The first option was to fight with their lives on the line. As the saying goes, you have the mace, I have the skull. They were betting on Li Qingshan's stamina. But even if they were lucky enough to win the bet, many people here had seen Li Qingshan's speed when he flew across the river. If he wanted to leave, who could stop him? In the end, even if they died, they would most likely die in vain. As for the second option, everyone understood it. Don't be fooled by the beautiful words of setting up an ambush and walking into the trap. They were just hoping that Li Qingshan didn't take them seriously and prayed that he wouldn't come to them. Otherwise, they would still have to fight with their lives on the line. This was really the only option left. Everyone here was a person of status, and they couldn't just run away without even seeing his shadow. What would that look like? The hall fell into an awkward silence. Everyone looked at each other, and their faces were all a little embarrassed. At dusk, in front of the Myriad Flower Tower, rows of red lanterns were hung high. The smell of wine and food mixed with the fragrance of cosmetics assaulted their nostrils. Li Qingshan's stomach growled again. He was still carrying the leader of the 5 Venoms sect, which instantly attracted a lot of attention. But in the blink of an eye, he was once again immersed in the singing of women. "You, how are you fine?" the leader of the 5 Venoms sect said in surprise. At this time, Li Qingshan should have died from the poison. "Mph, with that little poison of yours, how could it do anything to me?" Li Qingshan had only used a bit of power of wish. No matter how ingenious the design of the heavens was, its use was still very limited. He then said, "Looks like your martial arts aren't weak, and you can be considered to have some reputation in the martial arts world. How about it? Do you want to follow me?" I. Who exactly are you?" "Haha. You actually don't know who I am." Li Qingshan stepped into the Myriad Flower Tower, and saw that the upper and lower floors were filled to the brim. There was only a high platform in the middle that was empty. A maid came up to welcome him. "Dear guest, Today is full, please come back another day. Where is Hu Xian? Let her come out, her luck has come. Li Qingshan's eyes swept around, and he saw a familiar person upstairs. He couldn't help but laugh. Bring some wine and meat out first, someone helped me reserve a good spot. Who are you? How dare you call Lady Xian name directly? The people in the tower were instantly enraged. All of you, shut up. An angry roar shook everyone's eardrums, and the true qi contained within was even more shocking. But the person who spoke was not Li Qingshan. Under everyone's gaze, an old man slowly walked down from upstairs. His expression was as heavy as if his father had died. He walked straight in front of Li Qingshan and bowed deeply. This subordinate greets your highness. Chapter 12:11. The building suddenly quieted down. Only the sound of string instruments could be heard. Many people might not know who Prince was, but they knew the identity of this old man. He was a famous figure in the pugilistic world. They thought he came down to teach this madman a lesson, so why did he pay respect to him? Dispense with the formalities. You are quite trustworthy. Li Qingshan patted the old man's shoulder in praise. I am a man of my word. The old man glanced at the big hand on his shoulder and his mouth twitched. He did not want to keep his word, but he was afraid that Li Qingshan would not forgive him. The people in this building were all young men from influential families and sects. If he did not come out to smooth things over and allowed them to speak nonsense, they might really anger Li Qingshan. Who knew how many people would die? The young ones are short-sighted and speak without thinking. Please forgive us, Prince. It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. Oh right, I still don't know your name. I am Tai Xiong. Because I use a pair of judge pens, my friends in the pugilistic world gave me the name Iron Judge. Tai Xiong did not finish his words. He was called the Iron Judge because he was upright and hated evil. However, he did not have the face to say it now. So it's Brother Tai. A judge also drinks with women? Li Qingshan joked. Prince is making fun of me. I'm just feeling annoyed and wanted to drink a few cups. Tai Xiong normally would not come to this kind of place. Today, he was really unhappy, so he came to have some fun. He wanted to see the world-famous beauty, Hu Xian. He did not expect that he would bump into Li Qingshan again after just one day. He was really unlucky. Since you are called a judge, you should distinguish between good and evil. If you only dare to kill some smaller wilders without any backing and ignore the evil Ma family, then wouldn't you be unworthy of your name? If you are still unwilling, I will spare you 3 more times. Let's drink to our heart's content today. You can make your decision tomorrow. Li Qingshan pulled Tai Xiong upstairs. There were still some guests downstairs. There was no one upstairs who was not a member of the martial arts world. Most of them were young, but there were also quite a few middle-aged and elderly people. However, none of them had reached the innate realm. All the martial artists who were presentable today were holding a martial arts circle convention in the inner city. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded as they looked over. Some people had already vaguely guessed Li Qingshan's identity and didn't dare to move. Among them, those who had tried to coax him were even more frightened to the point that their faces turned pale. Tai Xiong's seat was the best, so he could look down at the stage. He waved off a group of singers and invited Li Qingshan to sit in the main seat. He asked, "How is Brother Shui from the Snow Mountain sect?" His already Snow Mountain Hall's Hall Master Shui. Li Qingshan tossed the 5 Venoms sect's master at his feet. The sect master of 5 Venoms did not utter a single word. Sigh, that's good. Congratulations, Your Highness. You've gained another powerful ally. Tai Xiong felt a little better. Shui Hanfeng was much more powerful than him in terms of martial arts, reputation, and influence. However, he still surrendered to the world society. He asked, "Your Highness, why are you here today? Is it for the Martial Arts Circle Convention?" Martial Arts Circle Convention? Isn't that why you're here? No, what is the Martial Arts Circle Convention for? Is it a competition? Tai Xiong really wanted to slap himself. He didn't expect that Li Qingshan didn't know about such a big event. If he said it, He would be a villain who betrayed his friends and betrayed his enemies. If you don't want to say it, I won't force you. Someone here will know. Li Qingshan glanced around, and the young heroes all shrank. Sigh, I'll say it. Alliance Master Zhong gathered all the heroes in the world for a meeting in the inner city. Alliance Master? Didn't he give up his position to someone else? Li Qingshan flicked the Alliance Master jade talisman hanging on the hilt of his saber. This. Alliance Master Zhong asked to resign, but no one agreed. So that's how it is. You don't have to say any more. That group of shameless people. What else can they discuss? They're just talking about how to deal with me. When I'm free, I'll go and watch them. Li Qingshan rubbed his chin and revealed a malicious smile. Your Highness, if we continue to stay here, there will be some trouble. Why don't we go somewhere else and not ruin the mood? Tai Xiong tried his best to salvage the situation. Li Qingshan smiled and said, Trouble? Even if I lend them courage, they wouldn't dare to come. They should be thanking the heavens if I don't go and find trouble with them. Tai Xiong felt that what Xiao Chen said was true. Yes, yes, yes. Let's drink. He quickly filled up Li Qingshan's cup, hoping that he would drink happily and forget about this matter. Li Qingshan drank a few bowls of wine and ate a few large pieces of beef to quench his hunger. He asked, Where's Huxian? Why isn't she out yet? Compared to the martial arts circle convention, this was more important. Behind the 10,000 flower house, there was a pavilion and a small exquisite building. Huxian was dressing herself in front of a mirror. Her face was indeed very beautiful. She had a sharp chin and big eyes, revealing a crafty and intelligent look. She wore a white dress that wrapped around her exquisite and delicate body, causing one's imagination to run wild. Sister is really getting more and more beautiful. However, if you continue to be so slow, the young heroes and young masters outside will get impatient. The green-clothed maid behind her praised. Although her figure was a little skinny, she was still a beauty. Furthermore, she looked similar to Huxian. Let them wait. Anyway, it's the last night. I'll enjoy myself before I die. At least I won't waste their affection for me. Huxian's tone was cold. Among them, there are many lascivious people. However, people like young Master Lu, young hero Wang, and the others are serious towards sister. Sigh, I really can't bear to think about it. HMPH, serious? They are just lusting after my beauty. If I show my true appearance, will they still be serious? Don't forget how mother died. Huxian looked into the mirror. The green-clothed maid immediately lowered her head and played with the corner of her dress. Huxian retracted her gaze. If you want to take advantage of me, go to the north and kill that Li Qingshan first. However, is it really good to provoke that Li Qingshan? I heard that his martial arts are deep and unfathomable. No one in the world can block a casual slash from him. I said that because of his high martial arts. I'm willing to send anyone to their death. It'll be good for my reputation. But if he kills his way here, what should we do? Why are you so cowardly? This is Black Tortoise City. Besides, he's just a stinky man. Are you afraid that he won't submit to me? At that time, we can kill whoever we want and avenge mother. Speaking of which, why isn't that old poison here yet? I'll go take a look outside. The green-clothed maid immediately ran outside. Huxian sighed. When her mother died, she was still too young and did not understand this blood feud. However, she could not forget it. Even if it meant working with the dangerous Five Venoms sect leader, she would not hesitate. After a while, the green-clothed maid ran back panting and said in a panic, Sister, bad news. Li Qingshan has come knocking on my door. He specifically wants to see you. What? Huxian was shocked and stood up. Why did it have to be tonight? Let's hurry and escape. It'll be too late if we're late. The green-clothed maid hurriedly packed her belongings. When she bent down, a red fox tail trailed behind her. What are you afraid of? Keep your tail. After I finish my makeup, we'll go out and meet him. Huxian sat down again and started grooming herself in front of the mirror. Sister, your tail. Chapter 12:12. Li Qingshan's words made the entire building fall into an uproar again. Everyone present had come for Hu Xian. The reward of sacrificing herself to purge a scourge of the martial arts world had added a halo of holiness to her. When they heard that Li Qingshan was here to cause trouble for her, they couldn't sit still anymore. Righteous indignation overwhelmed their fear. Li Qingshan smiled. It seemed that Hu Xian was quite charming. She was a suitable candidate. The Five Venoms sect's leader, who was lying under the table, also twitched. Cold sweat appeared on Tai Xiong's forehead. This group of young and hot-blooded men had never seen Li Qingshan's terror before. He didn't think that Li Qingshan would be merciful if they were to act rashly for the sake of a beauty. He was friends with their fathers, so how could he sit back and do nothing? However, if he made a move, he would only lose his life for nothing. Lady Xian is just young and ignorant. That's why she wanted to make an enemy of your highness. Your highness is magnanimous, so there's no need to lower yourself to her level. Why don't you ask her to come and apologize? She wants to make an enemy of me. Li Qingshan was stunned. Ah! Tai Xiong was tongue-tied. His face turned red and purple. He muttered to himself, so he doesn't know. So he doesn't know. This is interesting. Just half a day ago, I didn't even hear the name Hu Xian. Why does she want to make an enemy of me? How does she want to make an enemy of me? This. Tai Xiong's mouth was filled with bitterness. He couldn't answer. He felt that everyone was looking at him with disdain. If you don't want to say it, I won't force you. Li Qingshan waved his hand at a table next to him. There was a young man in a brocade robe holding a folding fan. Speak. I, Lu Zixio, would rather die than betray Lady Xian. Lu Zixio's face was filled with pride. Even though his heart was filled with bitterness, he didn't want to lose face. Everyone in the building cheered. As expected of young Master Lu, Lu Zixio cupped his hands in front of his chest in all directions. Although his face was a little pale, he had a great spirit of disregarding life and death. His cheers grew louder and louder, as if they were going to break through the terrifying haze that Li Qingshan had cast. Senior Tai, I respect you as a martial arts legend of your generation, but I didn't expect you to be such a despicable person who fawns upon those in power. You really don't know what's good for you. Tai Xiong was anxious and angry. Could it be that he had endured this humiliation just to preserve his own life? I just want to let you know that not everyone is afraid of death. Li Qingshan looked at this scene with a playful expression. Luo Hu Xiaoming woke up from his sleep and said impatiently, "Stop being so noisy. Kill them all." Although the voice was tender and weak, it made the voices in the building quiet down, proving that most people were still afraid of death. Li Qingshan stood up and walked forward. Lu Zixio secretly swallowed his saliva and suddenly felt that his legs were a little weak. He stretched his neck and shouted, "Hero King, even if you can kill me as a person, you can't kill my love for Miss Xian." Before his voice died away, a big hand came at him like a dark cloud. It was so fast that he couldn't react at all. He couldn't help but close his eyes and said, "My life is over." Miss Xian, did you see that? With a swish, there was no scene of broken tendons or broken bones, no scene of blood splattering, no scene of brains bursting, and no tragic scene of a dead body on the spot. Lu Zixio only felt a chill all over his body, but he didn't feel the slightest pain. He couldn't help but open his eyes and found that everyone was looking at him. A familiar figure appeared on the stage below. Her mouth was slightly open, and her face was full of shock. It was Hu Xian. She never expected to see such a scene. As soon as she came out, Lu Zixio stood upstairs naked. It turned out that Li Qingshan's grab did not hurt Lu Zixio at all, but all his clothes were torn off. He was really naked. It's a little small. Li Qingshan looked down with a mysterious smile and returned to his original position, leaving the naked young Master Lu there. Lu Zixio's white face was so red that it seemed like blood was about to drip out. He suddenly let out a hysterical scream and jumped out of the window. Thinking about it, this scene today would definitely repeat itself in his nightmares countless times. Miss Xian. Everyone noticed Hu Xian's arrival. Tai Xiong's face was ashen. This Hu Xian was really daring to come out. She was really a femme fatale. Li Qingshan glanced at Hu Xian and hooked his finger at a black-robed young man. Tell me, how is she going to go against me? Demon, I don't know anything. Just kill me. The black-robed young man gritted his teeth. Compared to being so ugly, he would rather die. Chivalrous king, there's no need to interrogate others. Why don't I tell you? Hu Xian dragged her long dress and floated up to Li Qingshan. She glanced at the leader of the Five Venoms sect below the table and couldn't help but be stunned. Oh, tell me. Li Qingshan crossed his arms and looked at her from head to toe. He felt a sense of déjà vu. I declare to the world that no matter who takes your life, young or old, married or not, I, Hu Xian am willing to marry him and serve him for the rest of my life. Hu Xian held her head high as if she was going to face the danger. She exuded a holy and pure aura that moved everyone present. However, she also revealed her graceful figure. Enemies really don't meet unless they're not enemies. Li Qingshan finally knew that there was such a reason behind it. He walked around Hu Xian and said, Ian, your appearance is not bad, your figure is good, and your martial arts are passable. Other than the fact that you're a little venomous, you really fit the bill in every aspect. Venomous. Hu Xian's heart skipped a beat. No man had ever evaluated her like this before. It made her feel naked. Luckily, the other party didn't seem to have any killing intent. He wasn't as cruel as the rumors said. As long as he didn't have any perverted thoughts, everything would be easy. She took a deep breath and said, Chivalrous prince, if you want to kill me, do as you please. I, Hu Xian will not resist. However, please spare the innocent people in this building. Her words moved everyone in the building, but they also felt ashamed. He was a man, but he needed a woman to protect him. What kind of man was he? They all pulled out their swords, wanting to fight to the death with Li Qingshan. Everyone, don't be impulsive. Xiana isn't worth it. She shouted and thought to herself, a bunch of idiots, come and die. Li Qingshan frowned. He didn't see anyone else in his eyes and said to Hu Xian, your thoughts are really vicious. I don't know what chivalrous prince is talking about. Hu Xian's eyes suddenly widened. A sharp pain came from her abdomen. Li Qingshan punched her in the stomach and said with a smile, do you understand now? You. Hu Xian slowly knelt on the ground. She didn't think that he would really hit her. Everyone's eyes widened. They didn't think that a man would actually hit her. Sorry, I couldn't hold back this punch. You remind me of a hateful woman. However, I think you can still be saved. You just lack a lesson. Li Qingshan lifted her sharp chin and said, although you want to deal with me, I won't kill you. I will give you a great benefit. I will make you one of the top 10 beauties of Pudu Temple to fill the vacancy of the Ma family. Then, I will take you in. What do you think? Hu Xian was completely speechless. She almost forgot the pain in her body. What kind of great benefit was this? What did he mean by one of the top 10 beauties of Pudu Temple? Tai Xiong's mind was in a mess. What was going on? Did he come south alone for this? Amitabha, lady whose virtue is truly admirable. The great chivalrous prince wants to bully a woman like this. How despicable. A low and sorrowful Buddhist chant sounded. A monk and a man stepped into the building. It was Abbot Fu Ku and the mysterious Void Temple Master. After a round of discussion, Martial Union decided to wait for the hare in the inner city. They were afraid that the hare would come and knock down the tree. However, while others could choose not to come, they couldn't. If they avoided their enemy when they were just inches away, how could they have the face to stand in the pugilistic world? Li Qingshan smiled and said, there really are people who dare to come looking for trouble. Abbot Fu Ku said, if I don't go to hell, who will? The mysterious Void Temple Master said, Li Qingshan, did you kill my senior brother? Also, the blood feud of Master Fu who must be avenged. Li Qingshan rubbed the back of his head. Who are you guys talking about? Speaking of which, who are you guys? Your Highness. Tai Xiong suddenly spoke, explaining the whole story and the identities of these two people. He then sighed heavily and said, why did you guys come? Chapter 12-13. Demon. The head of the mystic void temple was talking about a blood feud, but Li Qingshan was talking about women. He was infuriated. Look at how angry you are. Your senior brother brought this upon himself. He received so many benefits from me, and now he wants to harm me. He's a dog that won't be tamed. And you, monk, your junior brother can be considered a monk, but he dares to curse. Don't you know what bad words mean? If I don't teach him a lesson on behalf of Buddha, I'll be a monk disciple in vain. Li Qingshan lifted Huxiana up again and said to Abbot Fu Ku, as an abbot, your lack of discipline is already a crime punishable by death. However, don't you admire her character? As long as you take her in and become one of the top 10 beauties in the world, I'll spare your life. And you, hurry up and hand over that person, or you'll die too. Huxiana closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks like raindrops on a pear blossom. It was truly a pitiful sight. Demon, let go of Miss Xiana. We'll fight him to the death. The young masters and heroes were enraged. With the support of these two elders, they felt much more courageous. Li Qingshan smacked the back of her head. Stop pretending to cry. Huxiana's tears flowed even more. I'm not. She hadn't been treated like this in many years. She felt wronged, and she couldn't help but feel afraid when she realized this man wasn't under her control. Then hold it in, Li Qingshan glared, and Huxiana immediately stopped crying. She pursed her lips and looked pitifully at Li Qingshan. That's right. Today is your wedding day. Li Qingshan smiled and rubbed the back of her head. Huxiana lowered her head, not saying a word. Demon, die. Just when the young masters and heroes couldn't take it anymore, Abbot Fu Ku took a horse stance and stretched out his arms. He roared like a great bell, his voice traveling 10 li away. A golden light slammed into Li Qingshan. It's the lion's roar. This roar could directly kill an opponent, and the 7 demons of Yang Mountain had died to this move. He was known as the one roar killed 7 demons. Li Qingshan just shook his head. It sounds like a dog barking. Out of the corner of his eye, Zhongxian saw Huxiana covering her ears with a pained look on her face. He did not use her as a shield. It was just a little shock from the aftermath. It shouldn't be like this. Looking down, there was something hanging down from the fiery red dress. Like a big tail, it lowered its head and sniffed hard at her neck. Through the thick makeup and faint body fragrance, it actually smelled a trace of demonic aura. Strange. How could he transform without going through the heavenly tribulation? After transforming, unless he was beaten into his original form, he would not casually reveal his fox tail. But when he thought about it, he realized that Huxiana was probably the same as Jiyu Yangying. She was also a hybrid of human and demon, and the fox demon race was innately good at bewitching and illusionary forms, not true transformations. So it's a vixen. What did you say? Huxiana's body trembled, and her face turned pale as she hurriedly retracted her tail. Everyone felt that Li Qingshan was really crazy. At this time, he still dared to tease Miss Xian. But they could not help but feel that he was indeed worthy of being called the Hero King for being so calm in the face of 2 great experts. At this time, a bolt of lightning illuminated the entire 10,000 flower tower. The mysterious Void Temple Master let out a low roar and used the mysterious Void Temple's supreme technique, the 5 Thunder Palm technique. Lightning leaped between his 2 hands and crackled. Ha! Abbot Fu Ku shattered his kasaya, and his muscles bulged as if they were plated with a layer of gold. However, Li Qingshan did not even look at them. He said to Huxiana, I said you are a vixen. To others, these words might have sounded like flirting, but Huxiana's expression dimmed. Knowing that he had seen through her, she did not dare to quibble. She pursed her lips and sent a voice transmission, Since your highness knows that I am not a beauty, why do you not let me go? Haha, I think I made the right decision to come here today. Huxiana saw that there was not a trace of disgust on his face, and that his round eyes were shining. She could not help but feel confused. Was there really a man who did not mind her identity? Abbot Fu Ku rose from the ground and broke through the floor. He threw out a string of prayer beads, which turned into specks of golden light and whizzed over. This string of prayer beads had a total of 108 beads. They were refined from the relics left behind by the eminent monks of the Pudu temple. Not only were they astonishingly powerful, they could pierce through stone and iron, but they could also change their trajectory in the air, making it impossible for people to dodge. Throughout history, who knew how many great evils had died to them? The mysterious Void Temple Master's hands danced with lightning, but he flashed to the feet of Li Qingshan, intending to attack from above and below. Your Highness, let me go first. I will only be a burden to you, Hu Xiana said anxiously. The lightning and prayer beads already caused her to feel fear from afar. If she was affected by them, she was afraid that she would be exposed. If these two smelly fish and shrimps can harm a single hair on your head, I will write my Li character backwards. Li Qingshan's gaze pierced through the thick floor and he pressed down with his right hand. The mysterious Void Temple Master was just about to send out the lightning in his hand, but his right hand suddenly couldn't move. It was nailed into the air, and the lightning in his hand exploded. Lightning is not that fun. The mysterious Void Temple Master and Xue Hanfeng had the same problem. They both wanted to use a powerful move to instantly kill him, so they used their moves to the limit. However, although lightning was powerful, it was the hardest to control. If it was interfered with by a divine ability, it would immediately go out of control and cause a backlash. He looked back at the prayer beads that were attacking him. Isn't it just a set of weak spiritual artifacts? Just as he was about to counterattack, a strong gust of wind came from behind him. The Five Poisons sect master, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly leapt up and let out a strange toad-like cry. Surging true energy condensed into a scorpion tail that stabbed towards Li Qingshan's back. Five Poisons demonic art. Tai Xiong turned pale with fright. He had also participated in the battle against the Five Poisons sect, but he had never recognized that the old man lying on the ground was the Five Poisons sect master. The Five Poisons sect master had been beaten black and blue by Li Qingshan, and he had lost all his teeth. As the saying goes, beat him until his mother doesn't recognize him. Who would have thought that the great demon who had run amok in the world would be lying on the table like a mangy dog? He had also carefully covered his face. If Hu Xiana hadn't been thinking about him, she definitely wouldn't have recognized him. The Five Poisons sect master was at the 10th level of the innate realm. In terms of cultivation, he was actually above Li Qingshan and had long since broken through his meridians. However, after knowing Li Qingshan's identity, how could he dare to act blindly without thinking? After lying on the ground for a long time, he had finally waited for this opportunity and immediately prepared to escape. However, for some reason, when he thought of that beating, a wave of resentment rose in his heart, and he sent out this fatal attack. Without looking at the consequences of this attack, he used the peerless movement technique of the centipede and fled out of the building. Li Qingshan, you dare to disrespect this old man? You brought this upon yourself. I almost forgot about you. Get back here. Li Qingshan didn't even turn his head as he reached out and grabbed out. The Five Poisons sect master's figure paused, and the power of hope transformed into a giant hand that grabbed him back and used him as a shield. The Five Poisons sect master's eyes widened, a golden light flashing in them. He could only revolve the Five Poisons demonic art with all his strength and release his true energy to form a defense. But in a moment of panic, it was comparable to an all-out attack from Abbot Fu Ku. Chapter 12:14. Text online reading site domain mobile phone reading click 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 click. Blood splattered all over the Five Poisons sect master's body. The thick green liquid splattered on the floor, causing a puff of white smoke to rise. Li Qingshan smiled. It was no wonder why his face was so dark. As it turned out, he had refined his blood into poison, turning himself into a poisoned person. He could kill just by extending his hand. However, with that, the prayer beads would be soaked in poisonous blood, so they would probably be quite damaged. For a mere Qi practitioner to be able to control so many spirit artifacts, he must have refined them into life artifacts. Although they could display astonishing power, if they were damaged, the backlash would be quite severe. Sure enough, the Fu Ku monk's face changed drastically, going from golden to red. A mouthful of blood suddenly sprayed from his mouth, and it splattered several meters away. The golden color on his body dimmed, returning to its normal color. He pointed at Li Qingshan reluctantly. Then he collapsed to the ground and fainted. The mysterious Void Temple Master's body was scorched black. He lay motionless on the ground. Li Qingshan threw the half-dead Five Poisons sect master to the ground. The entire building was silent. Everyone looked at Li Qingshan as if they were looking at a monster. In the blink of an eye, the three great experts of the righteous and evil paths had all been defeated by him. It was as easy as playing a game. In truth, he had only truly attacked twice. Abbot Fu Ku and the mysterious Void Temple Master had both been seriously injured by the backlash. But in the eyes of the bystanders, this kind of method was simply amazing. Hu Xian'er's eyes widened. Li Qingshan suddenly smiled. He lowered his head and deeply kissed her lips, opening her pearly white teeth and tasting her fragrant tongue. Hu Xian'er moaned and closed her eyes. She accepted her fate and did not struggle or resist. Her face was dyed with an intoxicating blush. The youths upstairs and downstairs looked like they had lost their parents, but no one dared to speak again. Li Qingshan said, "I just now. Do you agree?" He then whispered, "If you dare to put on an act again, I will pull out your fox tail." Hu Xian'er lowered her head and said in a mosquito-like voice, "En. Okay." Li Qingshan smiled and ordered Tai Xiong to move the mysterious Void Temple Master and Abbot Fu Ku in a row. The three of them did not die. The backlash from their own techniques and natal spiritual weapons was not enough to kill them. Instead, it was the Five Poisons sect leader who was the most heavily injured. He only had one breath left. The mysterious Void Temple Master and Abbot Fu Ku woke up. They glared at Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan kicked the master of the Five Venoms cult on the ground. "Oi, stop playing dead. Let's talk about you. Speaking of which, what are you thinking? How dare you attack me? What are you thinking? Why do you still dare to attack me?" He was confined by this world, and his reaction speed was very slow. Although it was not dangerous, it Fu Saint had blocked. Although it wouldn't be dangerous, it would still be embarrassing. Moreover, it would give others an unrealistic feeling that he could also win. The Five Poisons cult master snorted. "Heroic king, please spare my life." This old man, this lowly one was confused for a moment. "I am willing to join the world under the Heavens faction and serve king like a dog." Tai Xiong said, "Wang Ye. Absolutely not." The Five Poison sect's leader was cruel and vicious. He loved to kill the innocent. "It will definitely bring shame to Wang Ye," Li Qingshan said casually, "then let's kill them." The leader of the Five Poisons sect hurriedly said, "Your Highness, don't fall into the trap of sowing discord. This old man Tai's body is in the World Guild, but his heart is in Martial Union. I have a deep grudge against Martial Union. The reason I took the risk to come to Black Tortoise City this time is to deal a blow to Martial Union." "Oh, what is it?" Li Qingshan was curious, and he felt Hu Xian'er in his arms tremble slightly. The Five Venoms sect's master said viciously, "I want to poison all the little bastards in this building to death." As soon as he said that, the entire building was in an uproar. If it were not for Li Qingshan's sudden appearance, who would be a match for the Five Venoms sect's sect master? They would all have been killed. How venomous. Tai Xiong sucked in a breath of cold air. Originally, he felt that meeting Li Qingshan was extremely unlucky. Now that he thought about it, if not for Li Qingshan being here, his life would have been in danger as well. On the ground, the mysterious Void Temple Master and Abbot Fu Ku looked at each other, shock appearing on their faces. They had placed all their attention on Li Qingshan, neglecting the other demons. However, he had been hiding all this time, so how could he know the situation in Black Tortoise City? "TSK, you call this a big matter? If you said that you were going to poison all the people participating in the Martial Union convention to death, I would still give you some respect. What's the big deal about bullying a bunch of little bastards? Die." Li Qingshan raised his hand, about to slap down. The Five Venoms sect's master shouted, "Niece, save me." Hu Xian'er's body trembled, and she lowered her head in silence. "This is all your plan. If you did not lure me here, How could I have suffered such a disaster? Now that you've climbed up a high branch, you're not even willing to help me. What? Everyone turned pale with fright. Their gazes converged on Hu Xian, filled with disbelief. Heh, I knew you were up to no good. Li Qingshan smacked the back of her head again, then kicked the 5 Venoms sect's master to death. Don't make such bad friends in the future. Miss Xian, this can't be true. Yes, I did it. I took revenge for my mother. Everyone from Martial Union deserves to die. Hu Xian's face was filled with hatred. Could you be the illusion dancer's successor? Abbot Fu Ku suddenly came to a realization. Amitabha, benefactor Hu, your mother used her illusions to incite chaos and slaughter. She deserves to be punished. Also, benefactor Li, you claim to be the Hero King, but you do not know that your actions will bring chaos to the world, and how many people will die because of you. Hihi, what I'm doing is the same as Buddha, making all living beings equal. No, I'm even higher than Buddha. Buddha only talks about it, but I bring true equality, allowing everyone in the world to have the opportunity to learn peerless martial arts. I'll make all the sects and aristocratic families that oppress all living beings collapse and disintegrate. I'll beat these born noble brats down from the clouds and make them compete with their servants. That's right, I want the world to fall into chaos, Li Qingshan said boldly, not believing in Buddha. Amitabha, benefactor's demonic nature is so deep that it cannot be purified by Buddha. If you're alive, you'll sink into the sea of bitterness, and if you die, you'll fall into hell, never to be reincarnated. Damn it, you're cursing me now that you can't beat me. Since you can't purify me, find someone else to do it for you. Li Qingshan crouched down and patted his bald head. He pointed at Hu Xian beside him. Look at how evil she is. She's in need of the influence of the Buddhist Dharma. Hurry up and accept her as your disciple, and I'll spare your life. Hu Xian had a strange expression on her face. He was still talking about this. Suddenly, a smile appeared on her face. Abbot Fu Ku, I'm willing to become a disciple of Pudu Temple and listen to Buddha's teachings every day. The title of Martial World's Top 10 Beauties was a title that even her mother had never obtained. Chapter 12:15. Li Qingshan stood up and shrugged. He raised his right foot and was about to stomp down on the bald head. Your Highness, please wait a moment, Tai Xiong said. Wait for what? Master Fu Ku has always been benevolent. Not only is he a famous figure in the martial arts world, but he also has an extraordinary position in the hearts of tens of thousands of sons of Buddha. If I kill him now, I'm afraid more people will become enemies with the world faction. You mean, he can kill me, but I can't kill him? Li Qingshan's expression darkened. Tai Xiong broke out in a cold sweat. He braced himself and said, Your Highness roams the world, who can stop you? But there's no benefit in killing him, so why kill him? I can persuade the master again. Who knows, he might change his mind in a few days. All right, for the sake of compassion, I'll give you 4 days. At that time, if he's not willing to turn back, even if all the sons of Buddha are standing in front of me, I'll definitely kill him. Li Qingshan retracted his foot. Tai Xiong heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly helped Abbot Fu Ku up and channeled his vital energy to heal. Abbot Fu Ku kowtowed and thanked him. Li Qingshan let them be. This kind of injury couldn't be healed in a few days. Since this monk still wanted to live, he might change his mind. He said to the mysterious Void Temple head, It's your turn. The mysterious Void Temple head was heavily injured. His body emitted a burnt smell. The backlash of the power of lightning wasn't easy to bear. He knew he would lose this battle before he came, but he didn't expect to lose so miserably. Li Qingshan asked Hu Xian, What's the name of the beauty of mysterious Void Temple? Yong Miaozhen, also known as Fairy Miaozhen. Is it not enough to have me? Hu Xian lowered her head, seemingly angry and resentful. Heh, don't give me that. We've only known each other for less than 2 hours. Why are you pretending to be so affectionate? Of course it's not enough to have you. We're going to gather the world's top 10 beauties. Besides, you're not the world's top beauty. Go away. Li Qingshan's tone didn't sound like he was hunting. Instead, he sounded like a child who was determined to gather a set of cards and let go of Hu Xian who didn't belong to the set. Hu Xian pouted. What a weirdo. Li Qingshan said to the mysterious Void Temple Master, Oxnose, hand over your disciple, Yong Miaozhen, in exchange for your life. Devil, don't even think about it. Li Qingshan immediately raised his foot and pointed at Tai Xiong. Shut up. Tai Xiong was about to open his mouth to persuade him, but he could only shut his mouth when he heard this. Look at how smart this master is. He didn't even say a word. Those who drown are good at swimming, and those who are beaten to death are those who talk back. Die. Chivalrous prince, Yong Miaozhen is here, please show mercy. A female daoist wearing a crown walked in from outside. She had an indifferent expression on her face. She was tall and had no makeup on. Her gait was like that of a crane, and she looked very elegant. Oh, another one. Li Qingshan smiled. In less than 2 days, he had already gotten 3 of the top 10 beauties. His progress could be said to be godly. Yong Miaozhen climbed up the tall building with an indifferent expression. She bowed to Li Qingshan and the mysterious Void Temple Master respectively, as if she did not see the miserable state the mysterious Void Temple Master was in. Good, you're here to exchange for this Oxnose's life, right? Li Qingshan asked. Miaozhen, no, I'd rather die. The mysterious Void Temple Master said. Young Miaozhen lightly shook her head, not at all. Then you're here to collect his corpse? Not at all. I want to play a game of chess with Prince. Chess? This 10,000 flower pavilion is a place of elegance. This Hu Xian often tests people here with the 4 arts. It is difficult to determine who is better in the 4 arts, so we can only fight on this chessboard. If I win, please let him go immediately. If I lose, he will belong to Prince from now on, and I will not go back on my word. Regardless of whether Yong Miaozhen won or lost, her expression was indifferent. Li Qingshan said, if I stretch out my hand, do you think you can escape? What's the point of playing chess? It's easy to suppress others with force, but it's difficult to win them over with virtue. Just now, after listening to Prince's righteous words, I feel deep admiration in my heart and wish I could follow you. However, my cultivation comes from the mysterious Void Temple, so how can I just leave like this? I have to put in some effort. I believe that Prince is a virtuous person and will not disappoint Miaozhen. If Prince is not good at chess, you can ask Miss Hu Xian to do it for you. Her chess skills are also famous. Young Miaozhen spoke tirelessly, neither servile nor overbearing. This kind of attitude could actually arouse a man's desire to conquer her. Li Qingshan smiled and said, you really know how to talk. If I win against you, I won't start a massacre if I'm happy. Regardless of the outcome, I'll protect this Oxnose's life and even give myself a chance to win. Prince is wise and far-sighted, far surpassing me. Presumably, your chess skills are also far superior to mine. Hu Xian whispered, Prince, be careful not to be tricked. My chess skills. Li Qingshan drank the wine in the pot in one gulp and then waved his hand to clear the table. Bring the chessboard. A moment later, the blue-clothed maid brought the chessboard over and threw herself into Hu Xian's arms. Elder sister, is this your younger sister? Li Qingshan asked. Reporting to Prince, she is. What's her name? Hu Ling. Take good care of her. If I accidentally kill a beauty, at least I'll have a backup. Yong Miaozhen's eyes flashed. Li Qingshan snickered inwardly. She wasn't as calm as she looked. The 2 of them sat facing each other and were supposed to play first. Yong Miaozhen said, Prince's chess skills must be extremely high. Could you allow me to play first with black? Up to you. Although I haven't played many games, it's more than enough to beat you. The mysterious Void Temple Master was lying on the ground, sneering inwardly. This demon had such big words, but he didn't know how good Yong Miaozhen's chess skills were. Chess skills were different from martial arts. It depended on one's talent. Yong Miaozhen had a cold temperament and had no interest in martial arts. Besides cultivation, she was only obsessed with chess. When she was 13 years old, she won against the mysterious Void Temple Master. After she turned 15, she never lost again. At this time, a gust of wind blew into the building. A young girl came riding the wind and directly went upstairs from the window. She cupped her hands and said, "Your Highness, elder sister Yang, can I also play?" "You are?" Li Qingshan asked. "This little girl is Zhong Xianfeng from the Divine Wind sect. I happen to be one of the top 10 beauties." Zhong Xianfeng had changed into a man's outfit. She looked valiant and heroic, but her heart was filled with bitterness. She hadn't come here willingly. A moment ago, she had wanted to escape from the city and get as far away from Li Qingshan as possible. However, she had been caught by Zhong Yuntian and sent here to be a gambling stake. "Oh, what do you want to bet with me?" Li Qingshan smiled. It really had come to him without any effort at all. "Let's bet on the saber behind your highness." Zhong Yuntian stood at the top of the inner city wall, looking in the direction of the myriad flower pavilion. Before Li Qingshan obtained that saber, he did not have such strength. He had relied on brute force to break open the city gates and a bloody battle to capture Galloping Horse City. "Xianfeng, don't blame your master for being heartless. This concerns the life and death of the entire martial union. Since Li Qingshan has the heart to collect the top 10 beauties, with your intelligence and dexterity, keeping your life should not be difficult." You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,